additions to my list.
Good morning, good evening, and welcome to Year 3 of the Apex Legends Global Series. This is Day 2 of the Pro League, but the debut for Group C. The likes of Scars, Fire Beavers, the rookies in Game Ward, formerly La Cite de France, will be kicking off their ALGS journey today, going up against the heavy hitters in the Kansas City Pioneers, Gaiman Gladiators, all eyes on them, and if they can perform. So many storylines and so much to talk about. Guess what? I cannot do it myself. I got to bring the bald British sensation, the beautiful, the one and only Mark Onset Hatcher. How you doing, my friend? How you feeling? Good to be back.
I'm feeling bold. I'm feeling beautiful, John. It's the perfect intro. I gotta be honest, man, like watching that intro, it gave me chills again. Like ALGS Championships for us felt like a lifetime ago now. We watched week one. Amazing to be a part of it, just sitting back and watching, and now to be actually back on the mic. Dude, I just want to get into the games, man. It's gonna be a long day, but I cannot wait to get back into this.
You and I both. It's going to be amazing. Obviously, the gameplay is going to be fantastic. We got 6 games. We got Storm Point. We got World's Edge. We'll break down that and more here in just a moment. But we got to talk about our participating teams today. We started to preview some of these squads already. But Mark, walk me through who you have a circle over.
Oh, it's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously we've already seen a little bit of Group A, so we've got an idea of what to expect. But the unknown is Group C, right? The first time we're going to see these 10 teams in action during the Pro League for EMEA. And I've got my eyes down on Scars. I think that's going to be very interesting to see how they line up. With obviously with a few team changes going down, you've also got Fire Beavers coming back. We know how dangerous that they can be when it comes to those big slay out games. And Aurora at the top, which for an Englishman is a very difficult word to say. We've seen this lineup before. New org, but Aurora, which I'm going to have to say very carefully every single time. I'm looking forward to seeing if they can put in those big monster games as well, because I think that team, I think it's about time they stepped up as one of the front runners here in EMEA.
Yeah, you know what? That was an aha moment for me. Your A's and your R's are very similar, like lava.
To say
lava.
Aurora. You know what? It just sounds like I'm being lazy, so I'm trying to be, I'm trying to get this right early on,
You crushed it, mate. A couple other teams on my list here. SAF Esports, formerly Eternal, got signed by Start a Fight. Congratulations to them. And FUT Esports. Got to keep a close eye on the former. Flavor of the Month God Squad. They've been champions before. Can they return to those heights with Kuya on their roster? And then VZD playing Rampart. Yes, G-Dolphin on this squad typically, but Nags joining them this time around is what's showing on screen. I'm not sure if we'll have G-Dolphin or Nags or if that's a typo, but we'll get you that update as soon as we have it. But hey, you talked about the Sunday action. Let's take a look at the standings from Sunday as a result of day 1 of the Pro League. Who's on top? Well, it's the Kansas City Pioneers, 25 points for their first place finish. Element 6 with the Lifeline comp looked great. Vex Gaming right behind them. We, of course, won't see Vex today or Element 6 as they're in Group B. But keep in mind, you don't see any Group C teams here because they haven't played yet. So all of the squads we just talked about in Group C, they'll be competing for the first time today, Mark.
They certainly will indeed. And those teams that are in Group B will be watching on with a lot of interest as well, because the standings are obviously going to change. The teams who are in the middle of the pack might find themselves shuffling down to the lower end of it, depending on how the performances go from all the teams today. But I think Pioneers, I mean, what a performance it was. 25 points. It was also very exciting to see Lifeline back in the mix for Element 6. I always love watching K20's teams. There's always something a little bit surprising that kind of comes out whenever they're making their picks. But yeah, it was a great week 1. Looking forward to getting into game 2.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The Kansas City Pioneers looked absolutely dominant. This is like deja vu, Mark, because they were my team to watch last time around on Sunday. But after their performance, how could you not have them again? They win the Rewired Land Festival. Big championship for them. Substitute of Verholst. And the question was, how are they going to perform with their trio in Strafey? Well, they certainly answered that question. Nasky, Strafey, and Dell, the best trio in EU history, is back, and they are better than ever before. So good to have Strafey, the Ukrainian, competing once again. Our heart goes out to all the Ukrainians, but boy, oh boy, is Kansas City Pioneers looking great, Mark. Who do you have your eye on for?
I've got to say Scars. I mentioned it when we were looking through the team, and it's because this is, a reinvention of Scars, right? We're going to see some highlights from them for the ALGS Championship. We're going to see, Wig popping off here, this Kraber shot that came in from Mandy. But of course, Mandy now not part of the squad, and it's going to be down to this new lineup. You've got Jerovic joining, the German, who's going to be part of this team. You've got also Hiaka coming in, who we've seen in the Pro League, and I'm kind of just an eye on what is this Scars lineup going to produce? Is it going to be able to match the standards that were set previously? All eyes are on them, to be fair, and I think that the leadership is going to be an interesting thing for me. Who's going to be stepping up, making those big in-game calls? And when you have a team who's set such high expectations, everybody's going to be looking for them to match it, if not go above it. So I feel like a lot of pressure might be on Scars today as they reintroduce themselves to the Pro League here.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. All eyes on the EU CEO Taishin with the new roster. The German picking up a fellow German in Jurovic. It's crazy. Just a year ago, Jurovic was manning the German broadcast for the ALGS. He was obviously still competing, but I think he thought his competition days were maybe a glimmer of the past. He gets substituted, joins the AIM Esports squad at ALGS Champs, performs well, and then gets picked up by Scars. So what a journey for him. I'm excited to see him alongside Iarka and what they can do. It's going to be an interesting new era and new journey for Scars. And in my opinion, it's a complete wild card. I don't know whether or not they're still going to be a top team in EU or they'll fall under irrelevance. We'll find out today. But let's take a look at the map schedule so you guys can see exactly when things are going to be taking place. We're kicking off with Storm Point and then wrapping up with World's Edge. 3 games on Storm Point, 3 games on World's Edge will be the overview today. And then that leads us right into your favorite feature of the ALGS. It's Multi-View, award-winning feature of the Apex Legends Global Series, by the way. Multi-View is back and better than ever before. Make sure to hit the Command Center button on Twitch right below the stream to watch your favorite player, your favorite team, every drop spot, every rotate, and their comms, by the way. You can hear their communication. It's one of the best features I've seen in all of esports. And of course, it debuted and was on Shine at ALGS Champions, debuted last season. It's been such a brilliant addition to competitive Apex, Mark.
Oh, it certainly has. I mean, you literally have no excuse right now to watch every single POV, hear every single little bit of communication, see every single end circle from the way that you want to see it. So it is an amazing feature. If you're not using it, go and have a little play with it, because you're going to have a lot of fun, and you can certainly make sure that if you've got a favorite player, you're not going to miss a single bullet that they fire.
And it's just so sad, you know. Pause for a second. That Scars continues to be highlighted in a replay package. The end of an era with the 3 playing together.
It's the start of a new one, though. It's the start of a new era. This is the thing, right? It's like, don't be sad that it's ended. Be happy that it happened. And now we get to move on and see some new cool stuff. So that's my views.
Some new players as well. That's a great point. Big shout out. So much love to the original trio, RPR, the Croatian sensation, Taishin, the German CEO, and Mandy, the GOAT. Obviously, was a great era, champions in ALGS Season 1. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Scars can do in this new era with this new roster. Of course, Taishin still at the helm. Will be fun to watch, that is for sure. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Enough of us blabbing heads. Gameplay is ready. We're jumping right into the action this year from the pre-show. Game number 1 right around the corner. So, Mark, as we get ready to load into the dropship here, your predictions for Game 1. Who do you think's going to take it?
You're actually asking me for predictions. I thought we got away with this season. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm refusing to do them. No, I won't. I'll give you a prediction. That is that KCP will do quite well today. Because wow. I just think that their consistency has been something that's been really impressive. I think not only the win from week 1, but if you've been watching, scrims, they've been playing so many, every single tournament they can be a part of, they've been a part of, and they're just putting in the time and the effort. And the thing I've always loved about this team and the fact that we've got that original kind of trio, that lineup back together, is chemistry is something that you can't teach with players. And I just feel like these 3 not only work so well together, but they love playing with each other so much that you can't not get results when you have all those great ingredients.
Well, famous last words for KCP fans and Nasky, because you just absolutely doomed the Kansas City Pioneers. The onset curse lives on. No way, I'm not letting the
new season
prediction segment.
It's a new season that is ended now. Okay, it's finished. Oh, yeah? The curse. You're turning things around? The curse. It was a land-based curse. I just need a LAN to happen for that to end, and then we had champs, so it's over now. Now I'm 100% on the money.
We did perform all types of crazy rituals to get rid of the onset curse in the green room at Champs, and safe to say, goats were sacrificed. No, I'm just kidding. Nothing was sacrificed. No animals were harmed in the making or the breaking of the onset curse. But this is a new season. You're right. Kansas City Pioneers is who you have your eye on. For me, I'm really excited for some of these kind of rookie squads. I'm not saying they're going to necessarily come in and win the day, but I'll give some love to the 3 Muppets. I've really enjoyed watching them. They're like the Teen Burger of EU this year. A lot of fans enjoying the 3 Muppets run that we saw last time around. And then Game Ward. Game Ward is the team I'm looking out for. YOLO on this squad, as well as Psycop, the IGL, former Le Site de France King, picks up 2 young goats in YOLO. I'm excited to see what this squad can do. 17, 18-year-old mouse and keyboard player and controller player are the 2 additional members of this roster. Game Ward and France back on top for France. We haven't seen a top French team since Le Site de France. Can this team be the squad that the French have been hopeful for?
Oh, you would hope so, for sure. And I think another team that I'm certainly keeping my eyes on this week is Gaming Gladiators, right? That lineup, former Gambit lineup, everybody expected them coming back together to be able to recreate that amazing consistency that we've seen from them, but it was a disappointing week number 1. You have to say they finished down in 16th place, which for them is straight up unacceptable. They know that themselves, and I'm sure today they're going to come out swinging.
That's a great point. And then there's FUT Esports, right? In a similar category as Gaimin, right? Gaimin, formerly FA Kitties, dominant alongside Alliance, but both of those teams underperformed in day number 1. So Alliance will not be playing today. They're in Group B, but can Gaimin bring it back and showcase that their dynasty still reigns supreme? And in a similar category is FUT Esports. Taylor Noth played with Pierre for the longest time. Big roster change, and obviously it was a heartbreaking roster change for the longest lasting team in EU. Kuya takes the spot of Pia, and since then, they've been a little bit of a roller coaster. Really high highs, but low lows as well. I want to see some more consistency out of FUT Esports. They're going to drop in Lava City over in World's Edge. I'm excited to see what they can do as we jump in to game number 1. The dropship is flying across Thorn Point. Blow it up in the chat. Let us know who you want to win. Kansas City Pioneers, will they continue to reign supreme, or will we see Gaimin bounce back, or maybe some of the young guns, the new heroes in VZD, Game Ward, or the 3 Muppets? We'll find out. Mark, game number 1 is here.
Here we go then. Let's get into it. It's been a long time coming. I've got to say, I feel like I haven't commentated Apex Legends for far too long, but now we do have the opportunity to jump back onto Storm Point, and ALGS Championships with me and Dan became the Storm Point, sensations. It would seem like every map that we were casting was Storm Point. So we should have a pretty good idea of how things are going to work out here. But I'm always interested to see, even though we saw, a couple of groups going up against each other last week, are any of these teams going to be fighting for any of those early POIs? Are we going to see a bit of contesting going down, or is everybody going to find themselves a little bit of a safe home? From the looks of things at the moment, it looks like everybody's got somewhere to play and everyone is going to look comfortable. But saying that, you can see that Ascend in the middle map, you're having a little bit of a poke battle, but it looks like that is going to be pretty safe. Both teams taking either side of the center zone, and everyone, sadly for the viewers and sadly for me, of course, and you, John, who love a little bit of early contesting going on, looks like everyone's comfortable and everyone's looking pretty safe.
Yeah, and we'll actually see a Western zone here, and you're right, people are fairly comfortable. Looks like Ember's is going to dip out and reset. They hit the launch cannon, and as a result of that, you're spot on. No 50-50s today, no early fights we saw in North America, and I believe in EU, a little bit of contention early, as obviously here's the interesting thing about Pro League, right? There's 3 groups, not 2. So every single week you're playing against a different lobby, which means, well, drop spots will change. Some people are going to have to flex. Some people are going to have to fight over positions, and there's not necessarily a free POI for everybody. So this lobby looks like everyone has mutually agreed. No early contention. Scar is going to drop launch site. They'll be well looted. One of the best loot spots on this map. And by the way, Mark, Storm Point Sensations, or SPS, should become your new in-game crew name. I'm just saying.
It's not a bad idea. Like I got to say as well, a few of the pros in this lobby, I'm not calling you out, but I've put you on your back in the last week or so in the ranked playlist. So if I do see any names that pop out, don't worry, I'll be calling you out. But I think it's going to be a very interesting game, especially when we've looked at some of the end circles that we saw from week 1. I know that Dan was doing a lot of research on it, and it seems like a quick rotation essentially brings success on either map at the moment. It seems like if you can get into an early good position, you usually are able to close a game out. So for Ascend, who are middle map at the moment, they're taking their time to loot, and this is the team that typically doesn't like to play that way. They like to play on the edge, play for kills, and be extremely aggressive. The problem with that, as we know, John, is it only takes one fight to go wrong, and all of a sudden you can find yourself with not a huge amount of points. But momentum can also be gained for a team like Ascend, and I feel like game 1, game 2 for a team like this is so vital for them to win an early fight just to get that momentum and that kind of that flow state in their fighting down.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's interesting. You're right. Ascend is always historically known to actually be a caustic edge team, which is pretty rare. Typically, you see caustic teams kind of bunkering down and playing in early zone, but they've changed their playstyle a bit. They're running Watson and Newcastle. They dropped Jurassic Park very central to the map, and they actually early rotate and like to get positioning now, which is a different playstyle for them. Obviously, Kashera, one of the better IGLs we have in EU, is not afraid to adapt, as we're going to see a contention between Ember and I believe the team that dropped in Antenna, which typically is Ascend, but it looks like Ascend dropping Jurassic Park this time around, based on the lobby split.
It looked like they're making their rotation through. I think that Ascend's dropped just outside of Command Center middle map, so not too far for them to go. But high peak at the moment. I don't think they're just being having a little bit of trouble actually from the team who are doing some damage with the charge rifles. Also, those darn doggies just nipping away at the ankles in Jurassic Park here that are causing a few problems. And it's amazing how that can slow you down on a rotation. You just get nipped on the heels, and it's all of a sudden I've got to turn around and deal with this thing before it really starts to have an influence. The Prowler this time will be dealt with, but again, just a couple of little nibbles on the ankles cost you a shield. So it's so annoying annoying. Like, trust me, we've all been there, right? You're just trying to move, you're trying to rotate, and all of a sudden you can just hear a barking, and it's like, oh, come on, man, just let me have a few moments to myself here.
But then it drops you a purple light mag, and all is okay in life.
That's
like,
fair.
okay, worth the one
Giveth
shield
and
self.
taketh, I guess, yeah.
Exactly, unless you are this squad here with all gray shields and Ember. But hey, I'm just going to be honest with you, Mark. I'm very upset that you called it Jurassic Park, but then proceeded to call them doggies. If you're going to call it Jurassic Park, we got to commit to the dinosaur references, my friend.
Hey, man, look, we all know that dogs grow up to be dinosaurs. It's a fact of life, okay? It's just, you know, nobody can ever debate that. But talking about the circle, taking our attention away from evolution and how it does and doesn't work, we should probably talk about where we're going here on Storm Point. And it looks like the mill is probably going to be where we're going, maybe even down Beast, where we could see this end zone going. You can see that on the Trident in the moment is Ascend, who have followed for a fair bit of time here. So you can see that they've tried to make a move to the very western edge of Storm Point here to try and fight their way in, clear their backs, and it's always a solid idea to do. But you can already see a couple of teams, as you would expect, inside of Mill, making them second think about, or take a second thought, I should say, about how they want to approach this. So for Ascend at the moment, this is spot A complete. Now they're going to see if they can pick up any KP on the edge, hold some teams out, or maybe a couple of fights break out, they can 3P and move into a slightly stronger looking position.
I just want to point out, look how fast this rotation came. I mentioned to the point I made earlier about how they changed their playstyle to become an early rotate, bunker down team with Watson and Newcastle. They're already at the far west side of the map, despite dropping Eastern right next to Central in Jurassic Park. So a quick rotation from Ascend. We saw one team on top of Mill poking and prodding. We have to assume that's likely going to be Gaiman. They drop over in Mill. They probably are staying put. They like to do that in Lava Siphon. But here comes our first fight of the game.
Yeah, this is going to be the first fight, and this is going to be a clean wipe as well. You can see Totem Esports moving in. Unfortunately, High Peak, you're going to have to just collect your bodies and collect those death boxes and think about game number 2, because you can see it was already an awkward looking game for them. They early rotate that they tried to make through Jurassic Park. They already took damage from Ascend, but now Toma haven't overextended maybe for this fight, are inviting pressure on themselves. It's Fire Beavers, some of the most dangerous players in the whole of the Apex Legends Global Series, who are going to take 2 down, 1 player left. He's taken care of as well, and Fire Beavers do what they do best, and that is get up on that high ground, rain down fire, and pick up some KP alongside it.
Clean wipe for FB. It is so much fun to watch this roster. CIS team, very similar to what we saw out of Team Empire, Ranches & Co. last year. This is a team that's not afraid to play aggressive, and we see it right there. They hear an opportunity to third party, and despite this being a pro lobby where you don't see third parties happen as often as you do in ranked, they are still not afraid to push. Great job from OJ Rain, Taskmaster, and 9 Imps. And just as soon as we thought, this Reply Totem team with their debut with Jazz alongside of Maz, aka Jazz alongside of Maze, it's awesome to see what they can accomplish with this new roster. They get taken up by Fire Beavers right after. So Jazz joins this team for Brit, playing alongside the Italian and French squad. Jay Savage no longer on the team, but they'll have to wait for game number 2 for a chance to shine in their debut.
Now, Ascend have made their move in. You can see there was a little opportunity, a little window open for them to move in now to this northern building inside of the mill. And the wonderful thing for them with their setup and with their comp is that they can now just take this area and have those Watson fences down, as well as the Newcastle for kind of a secondary line of defense if they need to. So all the doors, which they had to worry about previously, now they've got those Watson fences down. They only have to worry about the co-inhabitants. They also have Seer here, Phoenix Legacy, who are the team who are also co-sharing with them to try and give them that information. They'll know that that team is across from them. So at the moment, it's a case of, are either team going to get initial damage down? And even if they do they want to push off it, or are they happy to coexist here and wait for that end game?
Phoenix Legacy placed 18th in their first game on Sunday, so they're going to look to have a better day today if they possibly can. But they showed some moments of greatness. They showed some really, really good rotations, got caught in a few fights that were not favorable. I'm sure they learned from their mistakes. Speaking of Jay Savage, kudos to our OBS team. They're going to give us a chance to tell this story. No longer playing with Reply Totem, or now they go as Totem Esports. That was one of the longer-lasting teams in competitive Apex. Found themselves a lot of success, but always kind of floated in the mid-tier. I think a roster change was healthy on both sides. It's Jay Savage now playing with Digi and Row on Forge, formerly known as 4 Gang, but we have ourselves a Gaiman fight right in the no-name village west of Mill.
We do indeed. And I did notice in the feed as well that Hardeki did manage to pick up a knock, or maybe even a finish. So that might be 1 KP already for GG, who are inside of this building. But you can also see there's a couple of teams looking to coexist. And it is actually going to be GG who are still fighting down on this low ground. They're going to be wiped. And even though there might be a third-party opportunity, it won't be a healthy one. Because the fact, look how healthy that Gaming Gladiators are after that fight. Nobody went down. Nobody really took damage. A couple of armor swaps come in, but it was so clean and it was so quick that Hardek has even been able to pick up his original Evo shield and use the time to get that back up. So using those shield cells is going to get him back up to purple. A perfect fight and a perfect result coming in for them.
And I'm a bit surprised. Nightmare's above them, a team that's not afraid to play aggressive, that they didn't take the opportunity to third party and wipe Gaimin. So kind of a blessing for Gaimin Gladiators right now that they did not get pushed by Nightmares, who are right above them right now. I like the change, though. Take a look. Gaimin is no longer running Newcastle. Back to Seer and Horizon, or maybe it was a Valk alongside a Watson pick. So I was a little critical of Gaimin, saying, look, the Newcastle and Watson pick for Gaimin just doesn't fit their play style. They're a team that likes to free flow, play for kills, play out in the open, play a little more edge. They instead were running Watson and Newcastle, the kind of flavor of the month right now that 100 Thieves started in NA, and it just didn't seem to fit the way that they play. I like the change to put Hardeki on Seer and let him get a little more loose.
Yeah, I like the idea of just having a little bit more offensive utility, right? Give them information. Give them, the tools to win fights. They're going to win them. If there was no abilities in the game, then Gaimin Gladiators would win most of the gunfights that they were in just because they are that mechanically talented. But for now, as we kind of see about a minute and 10 seconds or so until round 2 starts to close, 17 squads still alive. So looks like everyone is pretty comfortable for now. Obviously, we do have a long way to go in this first game, but Gaimin Gladiators, you would have to say this spot that they're in is a very, very strong spot, not just for now, but towards the end game as well, because they can poke, they can prod, they've got the triple take in the hands of Artico. They might be going towards this end game with full red armors and great position alongside it as well.
Try to take a moment to say kudos to our boy Gaskin, who'll be joining you for the cast in game number 2, and despite not casting, still contributing. He said with the circle is heading, keep an eye on these teams based on where they drop, but for now, hold that thought. We got ourselves a fight.
Yeah, we do indeed. And it's Ascend, the team who are co-inhabiting at the moment. Looking like they've got some nosy neighbors. They've already lost post-kill, and unfortunately for him as well, he's going to be not just knocked, but also taken down into the death box. But Phoenix Legacy cannot win the fight. It looked like they got that first knock initially, but it might have actually been a trade. And at the end of it, Ascend come out on top. The only question is now, is there a mobile beacon about? Can they get post-kill back into this game? Or will it be Ascend just having to be happy with the KP they picked up and having to play this game out as a duo? But the fight that we were expecting to see, were they going to co-inhabit? Were they going to fight? Well, we got the result from that, and it's Ascend who came out on top.
I love this. Fire Beavers, again, CIS team comp, similar to what we saw from Ranches and Team Empire, playing Bangalore. Aggressive edge comp. They want to stay on edge. They want to take this fight with start a fight. Here we go. It's going to be the first knock coming through for Blast the Brit, former member of Invictus Gaming. We'll see if they can capitalize on that first knock. The Bangalore ult's going to buy them some time, and that will be enough to get the res. The Bangalore smoke keeps them alive as well. So again, don't sleep on Bangalore as a competitively viable legend. For the longest time, it was only Shiv, rock and bang, but he was ahead of his time, perhaps. Shout out to Shiv. Shout out to all Bangalore mains, fellow Bangalore mains out there. I like to rock some Bangalore rank.
Yeah, who doesn't? I think Bangalore, certainly on these more open maps, has become a real viable option with the fact that, you've got this cover, you can reset, you can smoke, you can get reses, you can do all that good stuff. Also, the ultimate, very underutilized in my opinion, especially even in ranked games. You can create so much distance. It's a pretty quick A to B before the explosions actually come in, and you can create a little bit of distance and separation from those teams who are trying to push. So Fire Beavers, unfortunately, even though they managed to stay alive, they did lose one player. And also shout out to the knock coming in as well. The longbow back in the play, and I know that Niceweek's probably watching right now. He's probably got a big smile on his face seeing that.
Wig likes himself some longbow play. Here we go though. V2 Joke, fellow French, is going to be finding themselves in a slight advantage over their CIS counterparts. A 3v2 opportunity for them, rocking the default Seer, Valk, Horizon team composition. Every team seems to, in NA especially, seems to be rocking that default comp, TSM and the likes. And in EU, well, we see a lot more bold team compositions. We see a lot more Crypto. We see some Bangalore. We've seen a lot of Watson, a lot of Newcastle. We've seen some Lifeline. Shout out to EU for trying to push the meta a little bit forward. As we take a look at heroes here, speaking of French, it's going to be ASCII and Robin.
At the moment, they're safe inside of that next zone. You can see they're just trying to make sure that the zone is going to close behind them and that they don't have to worry too much about things. ASCII's kind of been tasked with that. Now turns his attention forward, but you can see he's always worried that a team might come in on that flank, especially if they see a knock go down or they hear this team fight. So they have to be extremely careful in this position, that they don't overextend, that they just hold down this position. But it's heroes who are pressuring and trying to force their way into zone, which they've managed to do. And this is the beauty of having, of course, the ultimate that comes in from Newcastle. You can create that temporary little bit of cover. You can poke, you can prod, and then off the back of that, you might have the opportunity to push. So heroes here set up for success, but on the back of that, you can also see, I'm going to be very careful, Aurora are also pressurizing. So there's 3 different teams in this situation kind of overlooking each other, poking and prodding, and if any of them take significant damage, you could see a lot of teams all of a sudden fall and players fall out this lobby.
And you pronounced it so well, Aurora.
you, sir.
I'm so proud of you, Mark. Absolutely crushed it. But you're spot on. This is a fight that you don't want to take unless you can take it clean, unless you can get a clean knock and then ape real fast, because you'll get third-partied instantly. Here comes the Newcastle second ultimate, perhaps an ultimate accelerant that gave them that back. The Watson pylon goes down, but they're under duress from afar, and it looks like Scars is going to get knocked into the hands of Game Ward. Again, the team of young rookies in YOLO and Aimbot, they're going to take out Scars, the veterans. A great start for Game Ward at the top right of your screen as all eyes shift now to Heroes. This is exactly what you hinted at, Mark, the third party coming through.
Yeah, this is what they're worried about, right? The team just backing up, coming around that corner, and Heroes doing what they can at the moment. But Robin, unfortunately, even with a couple of knockdown shields, even with the ultimate down from Newcastle, you just get the feeling that it's not going to be too much time left alive. As Malawan tries to move in now just to finish off the damage that was done. Now he's going to use the Q. He's going to be able to get the reset maybe on the heels, and there it is. Of course, Heroes eliminated. They were in a tough spot there, just sandwiched between a couple of teams, and now Aurora, having cleared their backs, dealt with the team. Heroes that was behind them now have to turn their attention forward because they've got 1 minute and 30 seconds to move in towards that zone. The difficulty for them, they've got no Valkyrie. So this is going to be a very tough move for them. It's going to have to be the brute force approach. They're going to have to fight. They're going to have to try and take some teams down.
That's right. Well played, Aurora. And welcome back, Ranches and Cleve, the duo, former Team Empire to the Apex Legends Global Series. We missed you at ALGS Champs after being really the Cinderella team in so many ways. At the Split 2 playoffs in Sweden, they performed so well. A top finish for them. Aurora has been looking great for now. But look, let's jump into a listen-in. Not going to be an English-speaking listen-in, which we love it. We're here for the CIS. Let's jump into a listen-in with Team Aurora.
Скажите, когда к вам идти?
Да, надо будет, наверное, на тачке ехать, потому что просто поджиматься, потому что сейчас тут все
готово.
занято.
Куда ты хочешь? Под хату поджаться?
Под хату. Либо вообще туда встать сразу, не вариант? Не, мне
А
кажется,
там
у нас
нету
такая-
сейва, там 0 сейва.
Убрали, да, эту хуйню?
Да. На крыше стоят, контролят нас. Нам очень больно будет, если мы на тачке поедем.
Уверен? Надо, может, распекать их?
Но если
Я
распекаем...
иду за скаут, я иду за скаут спекать. Малик, почекай спину.
Хорошо.
Иногда.
Просто душите их, душите. Просто под
Крыш
какой-то
ты,
пик.
да? Дал 40.
Да, не мешает, пиздец.
Пойду чекай ТП.
Аккуратно, дай секунду.
Вали 50.
Пикайте, пожалуйста, пикайте.
Кракнул. Еще сломал одного.
Еще урон даю.
Еще дал урон.
Там снизу скат, вот эта машина. Ой, что за хуйня?
If you can you still hear us,
Машину
Production?
садитесь, чтобы как на долбоебука поедем.
Где раньше?
Вы уверены, что вдалеке нет?
Я не знаю. Я уверен, хоть на что угодно, хоть любого ебать. Давай сюрик. Я ультанул, 0 больших банок. Ультанул, все. Поехали нахуй!
Стой! Пожалуйста, блядь, выпусти! Сломайте, ребят, ну!
Ко мне, подойди.
Там снизу сквад, не торопитесь. Ой, ебаная дам.
Ко мне подойди. О, сзади!
Сломал?
Стоп, бери, хорош, стой!
Живи, не стой! У меня свап есть сзади.
Добейте!
Well, I have no idea what they're saying, Mark, but it sounds like the world is falling apart right now for Maliwan as he is fighting an absolute war. Gonna get the shield swap, though, and Maliwan still alive. Game Ward eliminated at the hands of the Gaiman Gladiators. We have 8 squads remaining.
We do indeed. Now, I'm not quite sure what happened there, but I saw a Trident driving into a fence. It's all kicking off, and it's only game 1. Watson maybe introducing herself back into competitive Apex in a way that the Tridents do not like. But even though we've just learned that the Trident is electric-based and it's going to go down in a way that maybe people didn't expect, it's going to be Foot Esports on the edge of zone at the moment who are doing some fighting. They take down Pioneers. So KCP will fall, and Aurora also eliminated. And from about 15 teams, we've gone down to 6. That is quite a significant change of all these teams as they try and force their way into that zone.
That's right. So Aurora gets 8th, KCP gets 7th as FUT Esports looking solid. 6 points to their name already. They're going to have to make a pretty tough rotation. Look at the zone at the top left of your screen. It's pulling all the way into a lot of no man's land. Beach and nothing more. Only a tiny sliver of that building. They're going to get themselves in the Trident, and that'll give them the only cover that they could possibly find out here. And they're going to ape a team. It's going to be a solo. It's going to be a rat, and this should be a clean wipe and a ton of cover for the hands of FUT. They're looking so incredibly good right now. Taylor, the young god.
I mean, this is brilliant from Foot. I mean, there is no cover, pretty much. There's that one building that you can see that GG are in at the moment, but they have just taken essentially a setup that was given to them. There was a trident down. They took another trident over. Now they have the other team's wall in front of them, so they now have cover. Everyone else is going to be looking out. Everyone else has to leave this building, John, which means that everybody else is going to be forced to fire and forced to fight. The question is, who is going to be the team that comes out on top? And our Foot Esports just going to watch all of this go down and just pick off so many KP. Nightmare Esports are going to be a team they have to worry about, but for now, Foot Esports are just in a god position.
Foot Esports absolutely have the win condition here, Mark. You are spot on. God spot cover that they just stole from a Newcastle that was a solo. Turkish Stars and SAF Start a Fight Esports eliminated. 3 squads remain, and guess what? 2 of them are fighting each other. Foot just gets to watch and laugh and absolutely dominate right now. His Nightmare's trying to get the final kill on Gaiman. It's a 3v3, making a 1v3 GG. Foot Esports on top to kick off their debut in the ALGS.
Oh, you love to see it, right? You love to see a little bit of creativity in those final moments. I mean, I will say this though, a rough end circle for a lot of these teams. There was no playable area whatsoever, so they just made their own. They went to the shops, they bought some Lego, they bought some Roblox, wherever it might be, and they made it work for them. I mean, it was a great push at a great time, getting that information that there was only a solo or maybe even 2 players alive on that defensive wall was perfect for them. They were able to steal it away. They also had the tridents there as well to give them that cover, and then everyone else looking over is probably thinking, hey, that zone's just pulled away from where we thought it was ending. Now we all have to leave, and as we all know, if a door is this big and there's teams that are this big, not everyone can get through that door, so you're gonna have to go down, unfortunately, and Foot Esports just played it perfectly.
Lessons learned here in game number 1. And I wonder if Foot knew that that was a solo, or if they were just like, look, go big or go home. If it's a team of 3, we got to ape them. It's our only chance. But they ended up getting very, very blessed with the fact that it was just a rat. They get that free kill. They get the God spot, and they close out that game. So well played for Foot. And look, they had to do it. It's not like they just, randomly ulted and got God spot for free. They had to earn it. They took out KCP right before that moment. The champs and the dominant squad from day number 1. They had to make it through the best of the best in the lobby, and they certainly did. Foot Esports with a great start. I can't wait to see the standings, but 12 points. I know they got a few kills as well, Mark. Solid game for them. Another team I got to highlight, Gaiman Gladiators. Again, changing up their team comp, running an aggressive, an offensive Seer instead of Newcastle Watson worked out really, really well for them.
Yeah, it certainly did, and a much better performance from them. I think, like I mentioned right at the top of the show, they would have been more disappointed than anyone at their performance in week number 1, but now that they're back and maybe they've made some adjustments, they found their flow a little bit more. Game 1 for them, certainly a much more improved one. A little bit of a note as well coming in from Dan saying, we're looking at drop spots, and we've seen this correlation between strong performance on drop spot and relativity to where that end zone is. And once again, pretty similar result in that first game. Foot Esports dropping just south of the mill. Didn't have a huge amount of distance to travel. It was just those little micro decisions they made perfectly in the end game that set them up for success. So when we are seeing those zones, that influence is becoming stronger and stronger. And I think a lot of that has to do with the reintroduction of Watson. I think Watson in those buildings, if you can get there early, it just makes it a fortress. It makes it so difficult to fight in against. And I think the reintroduction, like I mentioned, of that legend has really changed maybe that meta once again back to where we were in the early days.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's take a look at the highlights, see how many Watson teams we indeed saw. It's good to see Watson back in competitive Apex, that is for sure. But game number 1 saw some interesting things. Early game fight and exit for High Peak to the hands of Totem. Well, right after, they got third party by the Fire Beavers as Bitfix Gaming also got eliminated. And a couple other things, Mark, I wanted to point out. We saw Wraith in a return to competitive Apex. Last week, I literally said on broadcast, I don't think we're going to see any Wraith today, and we didn't. Here we are in game number 1 with Aurora, always willing to change up the meta and run whatever they want to run with Wraith. You love to see it.
Yeah, sometimes it's a comfort pick. Sometimes it's just that, every legend offers something at this point in Apex Legends, and a lot of it is based upon how you view the game and maybe where you see your weaknesses. That is the legend you're going to use to kind of buff your team composition and how you play your chemistry. Maybe it was a case of the Wraith being introduced because they were struggling just in those end zones with those micro rotations. Maybe they wanted to just get in and out on third party, a few more fights without Portal, whatever it might be. Like I mentioned, the legend pool is so healthy now that everything offers something to a team, and I think teams are now not so much looking at what are our strengths and how can we build upon that with legend pick. It's almost like, where are our weaknesses, where are we struggling, and what legend can we use to help bring us back in line on a more even kill. But speaking of even kills, there's only one team at the moment who isn't on that, and that is Foot Esports. Big win in game number 1, 6 kills to go alongside it as well, 18 points overall from game 1. You'll take that every single day of the week.
Yeah, but perhaps just as surprising, Gaiman Gladiators, only 1 point behind, even though they got 3rd place and had 5 less placement points because they had 10 kills. A huge game number 1 for Gaiman. Welcome back to the top of the standings here for the boys in Hardeki, Artico, and Leogri. Nightmare Esports, really solid showing from them as well. They get 2nd with 14 points, and then really a pretty even distribution. Aurora with 5 kills despite their early exit. A solid game from the team that says, you know what, we're just going to play an all-aggressive, all-offensive, double scan comp with Bloodhound and Seer alongside Wraith. I like what I'm seeing right now in the standings, Mark.
Yeah, filthy double scan. I can't believe they've just chose to run that, but obviously understandable why you would run it at the same time, especially if you're looking for fights on the edge of zone. But as you can see here, A versus C, this is overall standings after game number 1. No surprise, it's going to look very similar because we've only had 1 game played. So Gaiman Gladiators, though, I think that's the story, right? 10 kills for them, winning those team fights. I mentioned how for a team who likes to team fight, who likes to take engagements, an early game where you're having success in those team fights, it breeds confidence for the rest of the games as well. So 2 more maps for Gaiman Gladiators to repeat that performance here on Stormpoint before they move to World's Edge. It's a great start for them and certainly important for them, I feel, as well.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see the return of teams like Aurora and so many others, and the debut of a couple rookies in the ALGS. YOLO and Aimbot of Game Ward look solid. 5 points for them. They're going to want a higher placement here in game number 2 if they want to work their way up the leaderboards. But a solid start for the former Le Site de France squad led by Psycop. Excited to see what they can do. What a start it was, though, Mark, to game number 1. We saw quite a diversity in team comps and play styles, quite a bit of action, early game fights, plus some great late game rotation. Welcome back, everybody, to year 3 of the Apex Legends Pro League as we are wrapped up with game number 1 on Stormpoint, getting ready to jump right into game number 2. And guess what? I got some good news. Gaskin is back to cast with his longtime duo in Onset. We'll be thrown over to them for game number 2 here in just a moment. But first off, we got to welcome Gaskin to the show. How you feeling, brother?
Pretty good. Yeah, I was waiting in the wings watching game number 1 and some very interesting statistics that kind of came out of that one. Onset was talking about it. I've been looking at kind of final circles. I've been looking at how people have been performing when they drop near that final circle, and the stats are still kind of showing the same thing. Gaming Gladiators coming very close with their mill drop, but it was FUT Esports once more showing up and showing what they're made of.
Yeah, really solid game for FUT Esports. And hey, maybe it was a good thing, Dan. You're an analyst extraordinaire. You had a chance to just sit back, watch, and break down all the action, which maybe prepared you for game number 2. But what else did you see outside of FUT? Which teams performed in your eyes? And answer that question as I throw it over to you to get ready to cast game number 2.
I think one of the biggest things we have to look at this season is how well teams traverse the map and how well they do when they are dropping far away from that circle. A team that impressed me, Ascend. They dropped kind of middle of the map, but they were running a tear through a lot of teams as they progressed through the map mark. And if they can carry on having that consistency, if they can carry on finding points via kills, they will be successful throughout the day.
They certainly will. Any team who is finding success is usually going to pick up those kills alongside it as well. But Dan, I've got to say, welcome back, mate.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I thought you were going to be with us for game 1, but I understand that you have a wind-up period before you get ready to cast now. You got a whole thing that you got to go through, and it's just good to have you back, man. It's good to have you back. It feels like a long time since we've done this.
It's a very, unique startup system, a lot of caffeine. I've got to make sure I meditate previously, and of course get my 18 monitors up so I can watch as much action as I can here in Pro League. Drops were very consistent across game number 1. We saw everyone getting their own POI pretty much. No early battles to speak of, no kind of fun contests for those of you who do like the early scraps. But what it does mean is once that circle shows, there you go, we can get an early idea of where teams are going to be kind of pushing very quickly. And those teams already in that circle, statistically, have a higher chance of winning the game already.
Yeah, they certainly do. It's interesting. You were doing a lot of work on in the build up to this show about, the win conditions for teams, right? And we are seeing almost a throwback where teams who are getting that zone as being so consistent on their ability to convert it into high placement and high wins. For esports, a perfect example of that, right? Game number 1, dropping south in the mill, only having to rotate a small amount, so getting into a good spot that they feel very comfortable on what they have to expect from the rest of the lobby. They turn it into a win, but you have to say they had some work to do alongside it. Taking out KCP, I think, was a huge part of that.
And I think that, for esports, we'll look at where they dropped and where other teams who dropped around them and who were their biggest competition. And GG was one of them, the Gaming Gladiators, right? They were a team that probably should have done a little bit better, maybe should have won the game, considering where they landed and where the stats would suggest. But I still think they'll be happy with a top 3. But a lot of these teams are going to look at these circles when they are landing kind of right in the center of that area, saying, right, we need a good game here. We cannot afford to have a sloppy game because we're passing up on an amazing opportunity for points. And there's going to be so many other squads around who are going to try and take advantage of that, especially those who are amazing in those team fights. We know full well within this Pro League, the majority of teams now are excellent in their positioning. But how are they going to do in those team fights? How have they kind of learned to the new meta? How are they adapting to the new legends that they're having to play? There's all these different questions that will slowly be answered the further we get into Pro League.
Well, it's interesting to see a little bit of change up in comp from what we saw in week number 1 coming in from Pioneers as well. Also some damage being taken. Looks like someone has just said, hey, you're taking your time crafting. We're going to make sure that we have an opportunity here to put you under a little bit of pressure. For Pioneers, maybe a little change of plan now with those bullets coming in from that high ground. They're going to instead stay here at the wall. They're going to get those Watson fences down, reset, and then try and reevaluate what that next move can be. But for a team like Pioneers, who love to play inside a zone, who love to play a very particular way, Dan, a couple of bullets like that, a couple of moments away from the timing on the rotation that you wanted to make can make all the difference for them.
Yeah, just being delayed ever so slightly can be so frustrating because you have to second guess yourself. You have to start questioning whether there's going to be someone kind of blocking off your rotation at all. But you just need a strong and confident in-game leader that is still going to make those calls, that is still going to be happy with those rotations, and also more than happy to take a fight when you need to. Of course, you don't want like annoying risks. You don't want to take unnecessary risks either. But sometimes they are something you absolutely have to be considering. You have to say, all right, what is the risk to reward here? Can we push this same direction? Are we going to lose out on too much? Is this going to be a team that we necessarily fight badly against? Because all these guys will kind of know roughly where drop spots are, especially now going into game number 2.
Well, it's interesting to see where this zone is going to pull on that third zone that pops up on our screens, because you can see at the moment that the wall seems to be the most habitable area for a lot of these teams who are trying to take some real estate early. ACP was a team we mentioned how those few bullets might have changed their decision, but they might also have been thinking we've got time to craft here, and maybe this was the original plan anyway, just to set themselves up in and around wall. It might pull a little bit south away from it, and if it does, then we might have a little bit of an interesting end zone with all these teams having to leave. But you can already see the impact that Watson is having here, Dan. Teams more than happy to get in early, have a little bit of a fight, have a little bit of a poke, but everybody's kind of finding somewhere to play inside of buildings. Having that gen down in those fences makes all the difference. But you can see start a fight esports at the moment. They are looking to stop a fight, as now maybe they're going to look to start one as they already get a little bit of damage down.
Yeah, they keep poking, they keep prodding. They're doing a lot of damage at the moment, but you've got to get some help. Someone's got to get that first knock, and then you have to push that advantage. But you can see they are so desperate not to be the first player to go down, and they're also reluctant to push out of the building because of a potential third party. They can see the bullets coming across their screens at the moment, so they're being very patient here. They know they're in a very good spot for the end game, so they're just trying to hold out. They're just trying to make themselves as big as possible, puffing their chests out, saying, you know what, this is our land. You ain't coming anywhere near it.
Yeah, the difficulty here for teams as well is, even though that fight might have seemed like it was isolated for 5 or 10 seconds, right, you have to remember that having Seer in the lobby, and pretty much most teams running Seer, even if you win that fight pretty easily, it's so difficult to reset now because you can't get that battery off. You can't get those cells off without that CQ hitting and those heals being cancelled, which means there's more opportunity for another team to come and arrive and take the fight when you're at your weakest. So armor swaps, so valuable, and you're going to see teams be more and more kind of careful about how they actually approach those fights, those isolated fights, because they know that it's not now a case of you got 5-10 seconds to reset. Now it's a case of you might think you have 5 or 10 seconds, but one CQ can completely change that fight against you. Another team can come in and just clean up before you even get those bats popped.
I think Phoenix Legacy just lost a player there as well, and that's unfortunate for them because dropping over at checkpoint, they were also looking in a pretty good position just to rotate over towards Cascade Falls, which is kind of where this circle's going, between wall, between Cascade Falls, somewhere in the middle there. Furthest we saw a team was not really
every aiming down. If that
in a rocket the circle, I think there's only 3 teams that are currently out. We're seeing squads now rotating when they do get any sort of indication of where the circle's going.
Well, V2 do get that full team wipe, so we see Bitfix being our first team to be eliminated. They managed to find that last player that was alive, and they just about managed to stay alive themselves, or stay on their feet, I should say. Some more shots are raining down from all of those teams that are inside of wall at the moment. If we do have an opportunity to pull up the map overhead to show everyone at home, to give them an indication of how many teams are actually inside of wall at the moment, it'd be really indication to see how this end game is going to play. 19 squads remaining. It's going to be a similar pattern to what we saw from game number 1 down, with everybody coexisting until that zone forces them to move. And where that zone starts to pull, it'd be a real big factor. If it pulls away from the buildings ever so slightly, you're going to see so much carnage so quickly.
And what's crazy is there's 3 teams outside of zone and they're all in the same vicinity at the moment. Here they are, Aurora, Fire Beavers, they're currently going at it. They are the kind of edge teams at the moment. So this is a huge fight to try and win. It's a huge fight to try and make sure you can take some KP away from. But at the same time, such an unfortunate situation if the 3rd team ends up getting involved here.
I also seen the Bangalore ult go down just to slow things down. A little reset coming in. The scan as well here from Cleve, but nothing going to be picked up. So it looks like both teams have decided to disengage from this, and Fire Beavers and Aurora will both live to fight another day. By the way, I needed to ask you, do you find it difficult to say the word Aurora? Because I've got to be honest, I'm struggling.
As someone who, like, as a kid, like, using my R's, I struggled a little bit, yes, but as I've got older, Aurora, it's okay, I can get there, but yeah, I do struggle. Jonathan Ross certainly wouldn't enjoy it anyway.
Interesting fact, do you know Miles Ross, the commentator? His uncle, Jonathan Ross.
Well, there you go. I'm sure there's a lot of Rosses in the world, but I wouldn't have thought those two correlated.
Yeah, there you go, family. Anyway, back to the gameplay, back to trying to say Aurora. Let's see what their next move is. They're moving up from the southern tip of the circle at the moment, and just looking at our map overhead, it looks like they should be clear to move up towards Cascade Falls here without really coming into too many problems. Fire Beavers have taken the other side of that mountain. There is that overhead. Shout out to production for giving you at home the full picture of what is going down here on Storm Point. And like I said, look at the top of your screen, the very northern tip. So many teams at the moment already inside of wall. And if you're wondering why there's a couple of teams maybe looking on the outside, it's quite simply because they can't get in. You have to jump over that wall, and with so many teams looking out those windows, peeking from the high ground, it's almost a death sentence to try and force your way in.
And the reason why it was a big fight between Fire Beavers and Aurora was if this circle does happen to pull south towards Cascade Falls, albeit unlikely, and that's why we're seeing so many pull over to the wall, then they would be in one of the prime positions for it. A team that we didn't quite see on the map overhead was Phoenix Legacy. They had actually rotated all the way south to try and make sure that they could get a player back on their feet. So we'll have to see whether they manage to find any success there. But I think all eyes are going to be on the wall. That is the drop point of the Kansas City Pioneers. They are a team that has been talked about so much coming into Pro League, and we'll see now when they have kind of one of the best drop positions for this circle, whether they can actually make it pay.
Well, as this zone does close, you're not going to see too many teams really forced to take any engagements because everybody is safe. Everybody is inside of that circle. The only team who might be a slight worry at the moment is Aurora, who are in zone and moving through command center at the moment. And there's a team who's sat at the top of that command center, and that is going to be Scars. So we'll keep our eyes out on that kill feed and maybe switch over to that POV when we get the opportunity to see how they try and play it. But for now, Pioneers inside of this building. The Sentinel is going to do a little bit of damage here, and Strafey's going to use that gen to keep those cells, the cell economy strong. to get that little bit of extra HP back on his side. But for now, it's just poke damage. 30-30, Sentinels, everything in the hands of Pioneers to get themselves fully kitted up and in red armors towards that, as they head, towards that endgame.
And we'll have to see whether the Kansas City Pioneers have as much success when they are kind of landing in the circle. Last week when we saw them get a victory, they had to move over to North Pad from the wall, which is a little bit of a rotation. Sometimes you can get a feel of a fight because you have to usually take a fight to get to that location. Whereas literally the Pioneers, they've kind of landed, they've been in the perfect spot, they had a little bit of a grief, but they've not really had to take an engagement. So now it's going to be, all right, is your setup going to be as good as your fight? Are you going to be able to withhold these teams that are going to try and take these priority positions off you? Obviously, they've got the composition for it. Any sort of Watson coming into the equation is very much going to help in these final circles. I love seeing Watson back into play as well, by the way, which I'm sure you do as well, as an old school Apex player. But now it's about making it count. It's exactly what I was saying at the start of this game. You've got to make sure that when these circles do come to your drop spot, you have to get the points.
Well, Scars is going to be an interesting watch as they take to the skies now. I was worried that they might get pressurized from the bottom of command center, but it looks like that team has actually decided to take a different route right through the zone, which has now forced Scars to try and force their way in. We'll jump into a listening right now as they land, because this is a huge moment here for this new lineup.
You can even land in between, it's fine. Let's make sure you don't die. It's free?
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
You need to
Jen, you need to Jen. Jen.
Yeah, why you say I should play between then, bro? Like,
Here, sorry. No, you need to land between. I left. Go.
Just fuck it. Let's Jen and go, everything's fine. We need space fences now.
I'm gonna go on the drone, okay? We have 10 squads around. We shouldn't get tinted by any chance. I'm gonna see if there's a team behind us, by the way.
Yeah, there is.
There is? Okay, but... There's team here and team here then. And the team here, up top here, so they might try to go here. Be careful, like on this side.
I see one of them. Be prepared.
Yeah, they're playing there, by the way.
Enemy over there.
We vibe in here, no joke. We have one of the best spots now. Nice fence rotation, no blah. Just don't pick, Jero. Just keep making present, but don't get this on. Yeah, this is the duo. These guys are the duo. I think so. Let me see. Yeah, they are the duo. Yeah, they are the duo and they have a team here. So they will fight later. It's gonna be a free juice for us.
people destroying my fence. Drop the fence.
Well, as we jump back into the comms and out of the comms of Scars, I mean, what a rotation that was, Dan. To thread the needle, to find a playable zone with this Watson means that they will be inside a wall towards this endgame.
Yeah, not only just a playable area, but you heard it in the communications. They think one of the best areas you could have with where this circle is going to be landing. But now it's about how you play it. You also heard in the communication they're trying to work out where's the duo, where is the two. They've seen the kill feed happening. They are pretty certain there's going to be just a team of two over. So that's why we're seeing so much attention directed that way, because this could be some free KP for them if they play it right. But now with the next circle giving us that information, look how many teams are going to have to move from the direction. There is about 4, 5, 6, I'm counting 9 teams outside of the next circle on set. So out of those 16, there is a lot who have to make their way just slightly north. And that means we're going to get a lot of fights as this next circle closes.
Well, one way to get inside a zone is to have a Kraber, and Kashera has it in his hands. Just a reminder, we're playing on the previous patch, so that Kraber is going to be in the care package. And if you're trying to get a pick to force a team to fight, or just try and force a little bit of a ruckus for you to take advantage of, having that Kraber in your hand, one bullet will change that completely. Totem now making their move, but the Watson fences are down, and they are finding their shields down as well. It's Ascend. We're holding this high ground at the moment, and with the Kraber in the hand, it only takes one bullet, but you got to have a bullet in the chamber to start with. That one's going to narrowly miss, but another opportunity to line up here is not going to be taken. Kashira not making the most of the weaponry he's got in his hands.
Quite literally gatekeepers, but electric gates are going to be up, and unfortunately that means the other team's going to have to back off, but they cannot back off into anything else. There is no way for Totem to get around the current place where they reside, so they are going to have to take this fight versus Ascend. Ascend know it as well, and that's why we're seeing so much aggression from Ascend. They're getting the damage, they want to get this KP, but in 20 seconds, they're going to have to move north, and there's going to be more teams holding them out.
They do have the Valkyrie, but it's such a risky move to try and hit the Valkyrie ult at this point. Instead, maybe looking for a pick. If they can get a pick, a few KP here with this Kraber, a lot of pressure actually on the shoulders of Kashira here to put this to use because, like you mentioned, there's such a treacherous move for them to make now as Totem Esports find themselves taking a lot of damage and a knock comes in from them. And Mars is now going to be trying to survive in that corner using the knockdown shield, but the longer he survives, the more opportunity maybe there is to pick up placement points because if he can survive for 30 seconds here, just 30 seconds, 15 squads will be cut down to about maybe even 8 or 9. So the longer he can just stay on his feet, stay in this game, stay present, there might be more points on the board, but no, it's not going to be allowed to happen. It's 3 Muppets who move in, and that looks like it could be the end of their game, but no! He escapes around that corner for just a second. Finally, Totem will be taken down, and 3 Muppets move in.
So Totem, they managed to Valkyrie in, but they get taken out, and Ascend have done exactly the same thing. They've gone far north. 3 Muppets trying to stay alive, doing a little dirty dance at the moment with Heroes, who are also making sure they can try and get some KP. Scars have just lost a couple of players. V2 get eliminated, down to 12 now, make it 11. Scars go out.
Scars are out, 11 squads now remaining. Heroes trying to survive. Might have time just enough here to stick this res, while there's other fighting going on in and alongside them. That little bit of distraction, that audio cue was enough, but they also see ASCII's alert to that player trying to just hop through zone for a second to get some free shots down. But now Heroes look like they've stabilized and survived, but you can see it's not the most comfortable of looking positions for them to play, just hugging that corner of the wall.
Well, what if I told you Ascend are still alive and Ascend may have got into one of the best positions of the map? Just from Valkyrie ulting, they are right above KCP, right? Pioneers who dropped in this area that got prime positioning right from the get-go now share a building with Ascend. There you go. On top, they've Watsoned up, so they managed to kind of pick their timing absolutely perfectly. You saw what happened to the team they were holding out. They went a little bit too soon. They got caught out and they went down because of it. That was Totem Esports. But because Ascend just found that little window that sometimes teams that are distracted, they get onto one of the best buildings in this final circle.
KCP, the team who are underneath them at the moment. I want to talk about Aurora. What a rotation they made. We saw them right down at the southern tip. Probably the team that was furthest away from where that zone has pulled. Only around 3-4 minutes ago, they went all the way through the zone, all the way up to the north, and now find themselves inside of the circle as well. They're just to the north of where Ascend find themselves, so they've got a pretty good position to play with as well. On the other side of that zone, and with a more treacherous path to travel, is going to be Heroes. You can see the zone is pulling away from them. They're trying to get damage down because the zone is going to burn, it is going to singe, and it's starting to close right now.
Gotta be careful. 9 really squads, they go out. 10 squads now remaining, and Heroes, even though there's some good shots being put across, where are you going to go from here? Are you going to all push together? Do you send one player on a flank just to try and stay alive, just to go for placement? It's a very big risk wherever you're going to go.
Oh.
Looks like they want to take the fight.
Look at the timing coming here. ASCII just moved up as the rest of the players in front of him were distracted. They get the wipe. Heroes stay alive, and ASCII also manages to stay alive. Got a player in front of him, though, and ASCII, even though he's doing God's work at the moment, might be at the end of his journey. Heroes will be eliminated. We're down to 7.
And Ascend are cleaning up from their high point as well. They're just getting those final bullets in. Strafey from KCP also hitting shots to make sure he gets downs as well. So important that you get these knocks, then you get someone to clean them up, so you can just get that extra little bit of KP as you go into these final moments. But look at the positioning of Ascend. They are kings of the castle right now, but it's about how you play this final circle. It is going to be moving ever so slightly away from this building. You almost guarantee yourself top 3 just being in this building right now, but can you get a victory from it?
I mean, Lufka with this flatline has been hitting everything. Every single player who's tried to poke has just had to answer back to those heavy bullets, just smashing through those shields. High Peak are going to have to take a few moments here to get themselves back up to 3, but a gold bag's certainly going to help that, as Bavis is going to come back into that game at least with a little bit of health to play with. But look at Aurora, just waiting for all of the carnage to kind of unfold in front of them. If they can time this one right down, they might be able to steal in here and take the high ground if Ascend take a little bit of damage themselves. So that's kind of the interesting battle here. KCP still inside of that building, though, still just watching everything happen around them. For them, it's all about timing. When do they make their move out of the building? Do they try and go a little bit earlier, get ahead of all these teams as that zone will start to pull, or do they just wait until that final moment to burst out and hopefully catch a couple of teams off guard?
Yeah, timing is absolutely everything, but it can punish you at the same time if you go that little bit too early. So that's what all these teams are kind of bartering off against each other at the moment, trying to encourage pushes with a little bit of damage, maybe a nade coming in here or there as a player from Ember has just been taken down by Nasky, and that could just start now a little bit of a wave of movement as people start to see a team get eliminated. We have 5 squads remaining. Aurora still being patient as this final circle begins to close, but now everyone's getting a little bit antsy here, Mark. Everyone realizes that this is the moment where you have to start making a move, you have to start making a decision.
And it looks like Aurora have made that decision. The Seer ult goes down. They try and move forward, but unfortunately, they're just getting shredded from that high ground. It is, of course, going to be Ascend with those dual flatlines just raining down from above. 1 player still left alive for them, but 5 squads left alive in the lobby. Ascend at the moment, Kings of the Castle, up on that high ground, and every single person in front of them. This is like the firing range for them at the moment.
Yeah, Kashira as Newcastle going to be really important here. Of course, he can hop on down, he can get his wall up, and he can really be a nuisance to all of the other teams. But they'll know there is going to be other Newcastles in the game as well as absolute shreds from the Devotion. Ascend, Kings of the Castle, and I tell you what, here comes the Castle Wall.
Oh, the Castle Wall's massive as well, because now they've got ahead of every other team that was in front of them. They make the plays, they get the kills required. Kashira will clean up Pioneers as well, and with that move, Ascend, they win the game. And not only that, that was a monster KP game from them. I want to see the damage stats, because I'm telling you what, Kashira in that end game, he was not missing any bullets whatsoever.
And even though Ascend didn't have to move that far from their initial drop, their initial rotation, we saw them mid-game. We saw how far away they were and how late they were to rotate into that circle. They had to make such a ballsy play with the ability to just kind of fly on in, try and get a position. They took it, and because of it, I mean, it was so difficult for any of the other teams to actually do anything when they were just being rained down from above. But honestly, it is one of those games where you just have to commend how the players were. We'll bring Fallout back in because Mark's having a little bit of an issue, but I mean, Fallout, one of those games where honestly, you just have to take your hat off to Ascend and how they perform.
Yeah, 100% rotating all the way again from central map, but their ability to rotate early. That is the key to success for this team. And we talked about it in the game 1, Dan. I don't know if you caught a bit of that conversation, but they used to be an edge team. They used to love fighting on edge. They used to play an aggressive, caustic edge comp. The fact that they were able to completely rework their play style based on the meta with the pickup of Watson and Newcastle and early rotate to success. 2 games in a row now, by the way, that they've done it. Really, really impressive stuff from Ascent. So well played, perfectly to their team comp.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can get caught in those early rotations, like you can get held out by other teams, and Ascend realized they had to kind of bide their time, they waited, they held out other teams on the edge, and then they took the decision to Valkyrie in, and they had the perfect timing window to do it as well. If they had done it 5 seconds earlier, they probably would have been shot down like Totem Esports were, but they had timed it to perfection. I don't know whether that was a conscious decision or whether that was a lucky decision, but I think they'll probably tell us it was a very much conscious decision. But they'll now look at the amount of KP they were able to get because of it. Pioneers might be a little bit frustrated when we talk about, teams that kind of drop in that circle location. They had the prime position for quite some time, but I think it was just very well played by Ascend.
Yeah, agreed. And you're spot on. I mean, those Valk ults late game tend to be, we always talk about it, right? High risk, high reward, and somewhat lucky, whether or not you can get away with them. Or yeah, to their point, they're probably saying, yeah, we're such a great Valk ulting team. It's our strength. But no, sometimes though, you certainly do have players that are just understand where to go, where to position as Valk. And that is a crucial, crucial thing. As we take a look at the overall highlights here, a couple other teams you got to highlight in particular. Obviously KCP getting a second place finish here, big for them. But then Game War, we hyped them up a lot in Game 1 in the pre-show, and the Le Site de France roster looking really, really solid with a third place finish.
There were so many teams that really struggled to get into that last circle. I mean, they all rotated early. I think we saw 15 to 16 teams in Circle 2. But then when Circle 3 appeared and everyone realized they had to get closer to the wall, they all kind of had that, oh crap moment. Where do we go from here? How do we rotate? Do we just kind of press that panic button and Valkyrie in? Or you do what Heroes Shrine did, where they walked up, they fought on their way, they got a little bit of KP, but then inevitably went down. And that's what Apex has always been about. It's trying to make a good situation out of a bad one, pick up some KP, knowing that you are not in a position to win this game. Team that was in a position to win the game was Ascend, though. High Peak, unfortunately, went for that late Valk ult rotation. Did not work for them. Ascend were able to just pick them out of the sky like they did everyone else.
Yeah, that's right. And this view shows perfectly the Valk ult and rotate, getting God Spot for Ascend. So well played. Such a great Valk ult in rotation. And this is a really, really similar game to what we saw in NA in the Pro League last week, with 100 Thieves ending up on top, also as Newcastle. So noticing a trend here, Newcastle fares really, really well in the wall, which obviously makes sense. You know, a player that can actually drop a deployable wall, all the cover that you're able to get in a massive game, Michael Jordan-esque game, 23 points, 11 kills, and a first place finish for Ascend. Aurora is able to end up actually taking second above the Kansas City Pioneers. I thought that was flipped. Game Ward in fourth, and FUT Esports with some consistency. No kills this time around, but they get a few placement points as well. High Peak with a pretty high kill game.
And we really have to praise Aurora as well. Onset kept harping on about it. They dropped right down at the bottom at Shipfall, and they've still been able to make their way up, get to the wall, and finish in second place. It was such a tough rotation for them. Everything seemed to be against them, and they were still able to break through. Very impressive indeed. And I'd love to go back and watch their entire POV so I can learn a little bit more. There's the bottom half of the table, though. Some teams still picking up kills. For example, Totem Esports still getting a good amount of points just because they were able to get a little bit aggressive and pick up some extra KP.
Yeah, so I want to double click on that Aurora point as well, actually, because you're spot on. I mean, they're playing a team composition of Wraith, Bloodhound, and Seer that does not give them a whole lot of defensive utility for rotations, yet still was able to find a successful rotation. Obviously, the Wraith portal is the one thing that maybe helps them a little bit, but outside of that, you don't have a Gibraltar shield. You don't have Newcastle cover. You don't have Watson. You don't even have a Valkyrie for late rotates. It's really impressive they're able to rotate as well as they did and get their positioning and get their late game placement, given their team composition coming from all the way on the southernmost place on the map in Shipfall. You're spot on there. A couple other teams, Game Ward, well, they dropped down to Beast, so a fairly easy rotation alongside the coast of the west part of the map for them. Really solid rotation. And then we talked about Ascend coming from Jurassic Park with a Valk ultimate that got them high ground and got them God spot. That's why they were able to come out on top, Gaskin.
Yeah, and even though Valkyrie, had changes and there was maybe questioning would she stay in the meta, I think we still see how important it is because, yes, okay, it is a risk, but when that risk pays off, boy, does it help out. And honestly, a position like that Ascend were able to find themselves in with players of that standard as well, that caliber, they're never going to throw a game like that. They are never going to throw away a position like that. You've just got to make sure you're all communicating, watching the right angles, and of course, using that castle wall at the right time just help them get ahead of that team where they could just pinch them at the right moment.
I love it. Well, let's bring Mark, aka Onset, back to the discussion here as we actually will have a chance to take a look at the late game circle and some of the best highlights from the end circle moments. Onset, we'd love to get your thoughts here on this late game.
Hey, I'm glad to be back again. Sorry, everybody. My PC just exploded. Hey, it's remote. We're back. Don't worry. We're going to have these kind of things happen. Me to even get...
Yeah, we got Aurora here in this scenario, looking really, really solid. Apologies, y'all. It was like technical difficulties with Mark and his mic, but we got Aurora, like you said, impressive ability for them to secure a top 3 finish, but ultimately it was Ascend Gaskin with the ultimate God spot with high ground. It was the easiest win of their lives, probably.
And I think you spoke about, the composition and how Wraith came into the equation. Just being able to queue out can sometimes give you that extra placement as well. And those points could be so valuable as we move forward and as we look at Pro League and those teams who are trying to qualify for playoffs, etc. So Ascend, yes, okay, they did fantastic. They got first place, but you've also got to look at what teams did outside of that. How far did they have to move? Is this a bad circle for them, for example? And stats will continue to show that sometimes bad circles are going to be more difficult for other teams, but certainly Aurora made the best out of a bad situation in that game.
That's right. Mark, third time's a charm. Are we back? Are we live?
I hope so. Who knows?
Blink twice.
I'm going to blink. Can you hear me? Are you here? Hello? 222? Hey, you got me. You know what?
Just trolling you.
I'm sorry, everybody. All right. I'm going to do better. I'm going to make sure that my computer somehow works. I don't know how I'm going to get better. I'm looking at it right now and I'm just saying, hey, computer, PC, I love you. And we're going to get through this together. Okay? Here we go.
Yeah, kind words and affirmations should do the trick. Just make sure to, hug it tight and you should be okay. But no, Mark is back with us here to talk about the action. Mark, you were saying a couple brilliant things. We heard you in Discord, couldn't hear you on the broadcast. Talked about that late game circle and any thoughts you had from game number 2.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight Aurora's move. I know that Dan, was talking about himself as well just before. Unfortunately, my microphone and PC all did fun things, but I think Ascend's dominance of that end game was very impressive as well, because it's so easy when you have a good position to get a little bit over thirsty for KP that you see in front of you, right? You kind of think, there's 2 or 3 here a week. I could overextend here, but then there's another team that fires a couple of bullets, one down, and Ascend don't win that game in the way they did. So We mentioned how important timing is in that end circle, and I think that Ascend played it perfectly with their timings. They didn't overextend for kills. They picked up the kills that were presented to them, but then once they saw that space open and realized they could get ahead of everyone else that was inside of that building, the use of the ultimate that came in from Newcastle was perfect. They get the wall down, and everyone else then has to flood to them while taking damage. So it was just perfect endgame management coming in from Ascend. It was a very well-deserved win.
Yeah, that's right. And their ability to obviously hold high ground and put so much damage in before, basically guaranteeing them the win when they drop, because everyone was already hurt. And obviously both Aurora and KCP and Game Ward were all fighting each other. So it's really a well-placed ultimate, well-placed finish, and a very well-played game for Ascend. They take home first in the overall standings. They'll skyrocket as well. But it's pretty neck and neck right now, Gaskin. Really, any team going into game number 3 can still win this tournament, even the teams down 10th, 11th, and 12th place, because the points have been fairly distributed here.
Yeah, and I think with it being the last game on Store Point as well, try and kind of make as much of an impact in what could be a little bit more of a kill-heavy lobby. We did see last week World's Edge was even more statistically driven with if you drop in location, you are likely to win if Circle comes towards you, because these teams now know World's Edge so well. They've been playing it for absolutely years. They know it like the back of their hand, and now Watson's back in the meta. They know the positions to hunker down. They know where to be watching with the angles and stuff. Like, it is just a home recipe for them. So try and still get it here on Storm Point, where things can be a little bit more unpredictable, where teams are still trying to work out what works. I know we've been playing Storm Point for a long time now, but it's a little bit different to World's Edge.
Yeah, an extra year and a half of practice on World's Edge. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Game 3, our last game on Storm Point, is here. Will Ascend continue with their consistency alongside Aurora, or will we see other teams like Phoenix Legacy, currently down in the standings, bounce back? Totem and others. We'll keep a close eye on each of them as we throw it over to Onset and Gaskin to call the action for game number 3.
Here we go then. Game number 3, the final one on Storm Point, and 2 different winners. We have 2 different amount of points put on the board as well. Means that we have a lobby which is still very much wide open for everyone. If one good game comes your way, you can fly up that leaderboard down before we, of course, move over to World's Edge. My interest now is going to be piqued when we do see where that zone is popping. We know there's no contesting going down out of the dropship, but for me, like you were saying, the story coming into today with the work that you've done was the zone means wins, and it really is as simple as that. As we do see where that zone is going to be, maybe we're going to see a little bit of checkpoint come to the play here.
Yeah, checkpoint could be good for, well, Phoenix Legacy, who are dropping right there. Or was it High Peak? I couldn't really tell because of the colors, and maybe I'm a little bit colorblind, but either way, whoever was there dropping a checkpoint is going to have a fantastic opportunity if it moves that way. And it's so important if you have a beacon, of course, because then you can get that extra info and it will give you a little bit more comfort. Because sometimes you can bank on a circle pulling your way and then it just doesn't. And then you find yourself in the worst position possible. And I tell you what, we've already seen a little bit of a fight happening. Maybe there was some solo players just having to play on their own.
I mean, VZD, who are playing as a duo today, we know the story behind that. If you don't, go on G Dolphin's Twitter. He'll tell you for himself, as we do see they managed to pick up a kill. So they managed to drop in a position where they managed to at least even the odds for a 2v2 with the team that was in front of them. And now they're just, this is what we call ratting. They're hiding in corners, waiting, seeing if anyone tries to come for that banner. And if they do, then Bitfix Gaming, they might get ambushed.
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating when you do spread yourselves over a kind of POO like that and you have to then take a fight in a 1 versus X. Could be worse. It could be in 1 versus 3, but in 1 versus 2, it's still going to be a pretty bad situation for them. But we'll see whether they can get that banner in a 2 versus 2. At least they maybe will have that information because the death screen might have showed that there was just the 2 players around them. Anyway, Scars are going to be moving on up from Launchpad and heading towards the center of the map, as are a lot of teams actually. Everyone is trying to rotate very quickly, as we had presumed, as we had assessed from week 1, how important it is to do so. The big thing is going to be those teams who are a little bit further away, a little bit further out, down towards or up towards Lightning Rod, for example. That's going to be very far out at the moment. So then you're going to have to try and play Edge. And we know how difficult it is to play Edge with the current meta, with the amount of seers that are usually in the lobby as well that do feature. So you are just going to have to be a little bit extra careful when you're making your way through the map.
You're also seeing a lot of Gibraltar-less compositions, excuse me. Compilations? It's not a CD. In comparison to what we used to have for esports, though, at the moment, the greatest hits might not be looking too good for them because a few bullets have, unfortunately for them, taken down Taylor, and Noth also has taken a huge amount of damage. There's a grenade that's just been rolled in that door as well. Kuya gets the shield cell off, but this is not looking comfortable whatsoever as Noth goes down. It's all going to be on the hands of Kuya, the new addition. Even though he gets the jets going and he gets them burning, You have to worry here. This could be the end of the game for him. He gets booted off the door. Oh, my goodness. That was a heavy right foot on that door. My goodness.
I haven't seen a right foot like that since David Beckham in the England squad, but now Turkish Stars going to be under a little bit of extra fire as well. The third party's come in, some good shots from the Turkish Stars, but unfortunately it is not enough. It's Ascend who joined that party late. They pick up the extra KP, and Ascend, who have been the kings of the rotation so far in week 2 of Pro League, carry on doing the same. Find teams that are struggling a little bit. They're a little bit weak on health, and they make it count.
I mean, that was a lot of action happening in a very small space. It was a little bit like a weird underground nightclub that you find in Berlin, just a small room with a lot of music pumping and a lot of activity, to say the least. But for now, Ascend, they're going to be hitting the dance floor hardest because they have the kills in their hands. They have the position that they obviously wanted to take inside of this affectionately known as nut building, because it looks like a nut. And now Ascend, they're going to be, just like the pause there, and R301 is going to be in their hands too.
And Ascend, where they dropped, Jurassic Park, right middle of the map, when they saw a circle like this, they probably just got their ears to the ground. They said, let's find some fighting, let's see if we can pick up some KP. It's so difficult for us to predict this circle at the moment, so instead let's try and take advantage of perhaps some fights that are going to happen inevitably in a very difficult circle for people to predict, because this one could pull either way. When it's on the edge of Storm Point, it's usually a little bit more predictable. We usually know how it is going to kind of pull, but this one is a little bit more tough to call.
The way that the teams are starting this setup, though, you would imagine it's going to be a slightly more southern pool by the looks of things. A lot of teams you can see on your map overhead already made their way down to this southern side. KCP a little bit slow on their rotation here, probably taking a little bit more time to craft, realizing this isn't a favorable zone for them to get one of those priority positions, having to travel down from the very northern tip of Storm Point here. So keep your eyes on KCP. Going to be interesting to see how they approach this game in comparison to how they have the last few, where they've had a pretty easy access to zone in comparison to what they do now.
Yeah, a lot of teams banking on Barometer. We saw a Barometer finish last week as well. And it was a difficult zone for those teams who were coming from the northern side because all the southern ones had taken the priority position. So we'll see if it happens again. Scars looking like they're trying to just maybe get rid of a few Watson fences here or there. Let it be known that their presence is more important than the other teams nearby. But Aurora, a team who really showed us an impressive rotation with their slightly off-meta composition. Can they do it again here? They found themselves in a good spot, and it's such a good fighting composition as well. I love seeing Wraith being back involved. I know that so many players are so good using her as a legend, so we'll see whether she can do some damage this week.
Well, V2 now making their way forward. You can see that they had a Seer ult down, they had the Horizon Q out, the gravitational lift, and at the moment, VZD, well, they're just trying to get away and get out of danger at the moment because they are being chased down. I think they've been recognized as a duo on the map. And even though they've got 1 KP to their name, V2 recognize that it is just 2. So they're just trying to think, if we can get in a good position here to get damage down and chase these down, this should be 2 KP. We should be able to convert without too much of a problem.
And a huge chance for Ascend to continue their lead at the top of this leaderboard now, because we saw obviously the elimination of Foot after their amazing game number 1, but you see the highs and lows of Apex Legends. You can come first in one game and then suddenly almost dead last in the next. So it's about now trying to take advantage of this. If you are Ascend, if you are the likes of Pioneers, the 3 teams that we've been looking at and highlighting as very strong throughout this tournament. Speaking of the Pioneers, they're making their way slowly. They're going through Jurassic Park at the moment as the circle does pull slightly down southward towards Barometer, so a lot of people have banked correctly. Probably going to be difficult for those who aren't in the circle now to find a good spot, so you really are going to have to take your 3v3 fights in a way that you don't allow other teams to third-party you too easily.
Scar's one of those teams who are in a good position. Pioneers taking a lot of damage at the moment. You can see that Strafey's going to have to cross at the moment. You'd hope his 2 teammates, Nasky and Del, can provide the required amount of cover to get him across that open ground. For now, those Scars, who were in a good spot, are now in a horrible spot. Being pressurized, but 99 and a knock with that Peacekeeper is certainly going to help. Taishin, he loves the longbow, he loves the Sentinel, but now he's going to have to take a second to use the Peacekeeper to reload. They will win the fight. Taishin should be able to get the armor swap, but now you're going to see a third party coming in.
Third party comes in. Can Taishin do the unthinkable here? No, he can't. It was all but a dream, as it's Aurora once more, showing how quick they are to enter a fight when they know there is potential for KP. Their rotations have been on point, and also their engagements have been so accurate at the moment. They've timed it perfectly each time, and now they'll pick up some extra KP because of it, but unfortunately it means Scars will fall.
Scars having a bit of a slow start here, and you got to say, maybe to be expected with a new lineup. It takes a bit of time to find the intricacies of how you want to approach the game, what composition you're going to feel comfortable running, all these things. It'll take a little bit of time just to get down as a squad and make sure that you're on top of before you can even expect to put in a performance in a lobby that is so stacked like this. And this is something we should highlight as well. You know, Pro League being cut down from 40 to 30 teams means that the lobbies, the intensity in these lobbies is higher than it was in the last split down. Every single team has had to work even harder to be a part of this.
Enemy spotted.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to some of the teams that featured last year, but there were weak links around that were maybe taken advantage of. Some teams started dropping near them, tried to get some free KP. I can't really say the same for the lobbies that I've seen so far. Everyone proving their worth, everyone proving they deserve this spot in Pro League and making it a difficult fight whenever you engage on them. So there is not going to be any sort of easy fights whatsoever. So you really have to take every precaution to make sure that you are getting into those fights at the right times, just as Aurora have been doing.
Well, looks like KCP are making their push. I want to jump into a listening as the fight breaks out inside of this building.
Max, go break their gen if you can.
It's
Like
hard.
from a window or something. This.
I can't really destroy it, I can't.
I'm peeking window right now. Back one or low.
Back one. Can you
Back
get
one, back one, back one.
I'm peeking.
Can you do something? Baby.
They're dead, they're dead.
You cannot just sit there with your finger in your ass, bro.
Shut the fuck up.
Shut up, shut up.
Please, I need you to fucking do something. You're Valk, fly in the windows, get angles.
I need lights.
I can drop all my light and I'll pick up this flatline.
Okay, give me it.
If you didn't ask to like go stairs together.
Extended light mag.
Yes, I said peak stairs together. I don't said push from stairs. I said peak stairs. Maybe we can get a finish or a knock. Also, they are only a duo.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, we'll jump back in. I'm not quite sure how I ever match the intensity of a Pioneer's listening, Dan, but certainly some interesting techniques being suggested to finish that fight, but it was effective.
You can't match it, no, but they do bring it back down. It very much goes from high intensity to low intensity. They were like, by the way, it was only 2 that we killed. They were like, yeah, let's go. It was only 2 players. They have to bring themselves, ground themselves, so they can get ready for the rest of this game. 13 squads remaining. Less squads than we saw at this time in the previous 2 games. We saw a lot more early fights this time. Teams may be getting caught off guard as they're rotating. Speaking of, High Peak are on the edge of the edge right now, being held out by quite a few teams, and I think they were a little bit worried they were being pushed, and that's why they're hunkering down at the moment.
Yeah, just making sure they've got somewhere to play from, just making sure that any team is aware of their presence, and even though you can see that Young Hong Kong up on top of that building is taking a little bit of damage himself from the charge rifle, they do have the Valkyrie in the composition to reposition if they need to, but the danger is knowing that team across now has that charge rifle, and that team is going to be 3 Muppets on the other side of this fight. It means it's so much more kind of a risk if they want to take to the sky, because that charge rifle with that hit scan ability, it's so easy to knock that Valkyrie, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a 2v3 hitting the floor even without your guns up.
Yeah, ever since we saw the Valkyrie changes, you have to time those rotations perfectly. You get so caught out with how long it can take sometimes to jet up into the sky. And you're completely right. I mean, a charge rifle is disgusting on any day, but when it is just an easy target in a straight line, it should be easiest for the worst of players, like myself. But now we are going to see in the next 50 seconds a lot of teams trying to make their way into this next circle. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, only 6 teams in the next circle out of the 13. So over the half the lobby still needs to move in. So those teams who are already in, the likes of Totem Esports, the likes of Fire Beavers, they are going to be able to get some extra KP if they are watching the right areas here.
I like the fact that we've had these different type of zones as well. We'll come back to that conversation, though. As you can see, the start of fight, unfortunately, looking to leave a fight at the moment as they take a little bit of damage as 3 Muppets still moving through Jurassic Park. But here comes damage onto the back of Strongest. He's trying to get out of dodge. Plume is trying to hold the line for him, and he's going to do an amazing job as well. The flatline just snaps and manages to get that 70 damage down, which is just enough for them to reset here. Watson Fences will also help. The Horizon ult predicted from the other team to try and catch them as they went through that gate, but you can see the 3 Muppets now, their decision has been made for them. They have to slide down here, reset inside of this little cascade, and then they have to reestablish how they're going to try and move forward. Strongest still on that Valkyrie might be the play with that redeploy.
Sometimes the best form of defense is a good offense. Just making sure you put those shots down, let them know that you are there and you want to be heard as well. But that's going to be a great bit of aggression coming through, and V2 sweep up yet another team, adding to their kill point tally.
Yeah, really strong push that from V2. Did not let them reset whatsoever. 3 Muppets down on that low ground. Realized they had the initial damage. They had the best positioning they could ask for in that kind of 3v3 scenario. So taking advantage of it is always the most important thing to do, though. We always talk about advantage is great, but if you don't take advantage of that, then you're going to regret it as that game does progress. 20 seconds left until ring number 3 does close. We're down to just 11 squads, and it's just because of the lack of playable area here, Dan. Teams can't find anywhere to play, so everyone's just waiting on the edge.
Pioneers did lose one. Natsuki went down. Did they get the res is the real question mark for me, but maybe we'll find out a little bit later because V2 are now making their move in as we're seeing more knocks happen and more shreds happening with the R301 here.
301 now, starting to have a little bit of an influence on this lobby. V2 move up to the bottom of this cannon. They got a little bit of playable cover, but it's not as comfortable as you want it to be. Joke is finding that out firsthand at the moment as he's trying to pop a couple of shield cells, but he's just being peppered from left and right at the moment. And it's going to be cannon to cannon. They take the long route into the zone. Nibaside decides I'm going to come back again. It's a man cannon fest at the moment here.
And all the meanwhile, look at the positioning they hold themselves in right now. They're very vulnerable, but if they can hold out, if they can survive, they're in such a good spot. Doesn't look like they've got the ability, no. Don't have any sort of Watson to set up around them at the moment, but in the next minute or so, they can maybe hope that other teams will get taken down. But again, this R301 is absolutely insane with the shots that we're seeing hit right now.
155 is enough to make anybody smile. When you got the 301 in your hands and somebody just peeks like that, Joke now going to try and do some damage. He's not going to be able to connect in quite the same way as his teammate, but this damage that they are outputting is going to get those shields up. Even though this is a very tough spot for V2 to be in, the fact they're doing damage, the fact they're getting more closer and closer to that red armor means if they do have to take a fight, which they will be forced to in the next couple of minutes, then they're going to be more equipped to do so. Now that fight is going to be behind them. Big shots coming in. The spray from the 301 finishes it off, and that is as clean as you like. Pioneers are eliminated.
Pioneers just trying to crawl into the circle after they had already lost a player, unfortunately, into a full health V2. But Aurora, who had already done the damage to Pioneers, they're going to be the team to try and come and clean up the pieces here. But Rad just goes down. There is a fight back here from V2. Aurora might even lose 2. And suddenly what looked like a perfect push is going to end up biting them in the backside. No. And V2 survive.
V2 survive. They hold the ground. They survive. But that zone closing behind them might be the end of it. V2 will be there in the death box, unfortunately. 7 squads now remaining as Reply Totem with a team to move up and just capitalize on the fights that break out in front of them. Now, having moved, they have the whole of the back of the zone clear. They know they only have to face forward. And Totem Esports now in a great position here, Dan, to just pick away at some of these teams inside, avoiding that CAQ. Important. Jazaz was the only player who managed to do it, though. His 2 teammates unfortunately got pinged.
Well, there's 6 teams left. There is 4 buildings remaining in this circle, so there are 2 teams without a building, one of them being Totem. They are coming up onto that team just ahead of them, though, and they could, if they wanted to, try and dive on them if there was some damage coming from the other side. But it looks like everyone at the moment is just waiting and biding their time. Other teams in a good position. Ascend, they've managed to get into the southwest building and very much could be looking to try and go back-to-back here.
Ascend in a great spot, like you say. Back-to-back is something you should always be proud of in any lobby, let alone here in the Pro League. But for now, you can see the Totem Esports trying to set up a perimeter around this building, playing the backside of the fence. Here is where Ascend find themselves. Kind of overlooking everybody else. Everybody else you can see has got to maybe think to make a move at the moment. Pochiko's going to be the kill leader in the lobby himself. 3 kills to his name. And 7 total kill KP again here to Ascend. So Ascend once again, after that second game, look like they're set up for even more points here before we even get towards World's Edge.
And Ascend really have been impressive with how they've navigated this circle as they've seen it close in as it has pulled south and then away from Barometer as well, which is where a lot of teams were banking on. Ascend have always been making the move to the best possible spot. They really know these zones well, and the building that they reside in now, there's going to be a little bit of a slither that stays in that circle, so they should be able to stay clear of any fights, or at least the next set of fights. Maybe they could watch from the windows, maybe they could do a little bit of damage and might pick up an extra bit of KP, but their eyes will be set on ensuring they get that victory now, which is about avoiding fights to begin with and joining those fights late as we get into that final circle.
Well, SAF at the moment, you can see just huddled around that gen a little bit like a campfire at the moment. Unfortunately, nobody brought the acoustic guitar to maybe keep those nerves a little bit calmer and sing a little song. Instead, they're trying to work out how they move across that open ground. They kind of have to hope that Ascend do enough damage or Totem Esports take away enough of the attention from them so that they can make a move uncontested. Speaking of Totem Esports, they're going to have to make their move now. The zone is about to close behind them. Let's jump into a listen-in now with Totem.
Hold the door shop. Just go fence the door. He's on the door of a massive care. He has a massive on the door. Yeah.
Behind. Watson, knock.
On walk.
They're peeking.
Care inside.
There is a nade on me. Careful.
There's care inside. I have a nade.
The door is not
Care if they walk out. Yeah, care if they walk out.
I know, but they destroy the fence instantly.
Yeah.
Just look at the door. Amaz, look at the door.
Here.
I'm out in the stairs. I'm out the stairs, I think.
We need to wipe this.
Yeah, wipe outside.
I got sucked. I might die. Look at bottom stairs. Look at stairs.
20,
they're trying to walk out.
80.
Crack the stairs.
Guys,
Just keep looking at the stairs.
No, they're behind us.
I already ulted, by the way.
They're behind us.
Well, back into the action. Reply Totem do a great job of clearing the area, but now they're under so much pressure. Sharp down. Now it's up to Amaz to try and pull off something amazing, and it's Ascend who make their move in, Dan.
Ascend make the move, but there's still one team left on the building as well. But Ascend are doing the damage. Reply Totem out. But who is still in that building? Hoodie manages to get a knock, but oh my goodness gracious, the damage from Ascend is insane right now.
Oh, that car is shredding, but Lukai gets the armor swap. He gets 123 as well, just when you thought he was going down. It's Ascend who stands tallest in game number 3. Back-to-back go Ascend with wins here on Storm Point to close out those first 3 games. What a performance that was in the end game once again, Dan.
And we were on board with Reply Totem at the time, Fallout, and we didn't really get to see what Ascend were doing, but I was watching the minimap. I was seeing what was happening. They actually got out of their building. They went to the far north side of the circle so they could get behind all of those teams. An incredible decision for them that was a very risky one, but it really did pay off.
That is for sure. Wow. Ascend goes back-to-back. Vamos, Portugal. Great start for the Portuguese duo. And look, for the longest time, this team was kind of catfish. I'm going to be very honest. You thought they were a top team. You thought they were an S tier, an A tier after winning the Split 1 playoffs. But then you started to think maybe it was a fluke. They weren't performing at that level of being a top team in EU. But here we are now. They pick up Lufka, the controller player, coming through, and he's been playing so well on this squad. It took them some time to kind of ramp up, to rev that engine. But now, to kick off day 2, back-to-back wins on set, that is huge.
Yeah, amazing performance from them. And once again, a great indication and a great example of how to play the end game in a different scenario to what we saw in that game where they won just previously. Completely different ways to play the end game, but both of them were played perfectly, which ensured them that win. But sometimes it just takes big damage, right? Sometimes we always talk about, making decisions and everything, but sometimes it's just raw gun skill that gets you into positions to win things. And when the armor swap came in and it only had like a slither of purple left, I was like, this is it. They're going to be left with 1. But when you hit 123 burst off the back of it, it's like, it doesn't matter how many shields you got because the other guys is disappearing extremely quickly.
That's right. Sheer damage was dealt and done. We didn't see the entire thing from their point of view. We had a chance to see it from Totem's point of view. But Dan, what did Ascend do so well there in that late game to go back-to-back?
Well, they could have just kind of waited in the building, right? They had the southwest building. They could have waited for the fights to happen. But I think when they started to see the kill feed and they started to see teams getting eliminated, they knew they had to get involved in the fight sooner rather than later. Otherwise, teams would be able to reset. They might have to take a straight 3v3. Whereas if they rotated north, if they actually got around the teams, they could get behind them. They could not only pick up extra KP, but they could also have a cleaner fight when it comes into that final decision. There was a team waiting in the building that maybe could have been really bad for them if they had have got involved in the fight and lost a player, and that team was a full 3. But because Ascend timed it so perfectly when they did rotate behind, it just meant it was so easy for them to clean up. Yes, they had to hit the shots. If we didn't see as much damage as they had output, it might have been a bit different result, but they still put themselves with that chance in that final circle by playing that way.
Yeah, the damage output was insane, and that's what made the difference. But let's take a look at the highlights here from game number 3, our last game on Storm Point. One last thing as we get to late game I want to point out was Totem. They decided to play a little aggressive, and that aggression, they wanted to try and ape that team that was inside. That aggression ended up getting one of them knocked and really set up Ascend for success. So you wonder if Totem could have played that a little bit differently as well, but we'll talk about that here in a moment. Mark, walk me through the game 3 highlights.
Yeah, I mean, Scars looked like they were in a pretty good position to start this game, just outside of Barometer, or just outside of the center of Barometer, but unfortunately for them, it was kind of like they had a team try and push them early on in the game, which is always a little bit unfortunate. You're just kind of thinking, why do you have to go and inhabit this building when we can both survive? And then having won that fight, a third party just walked in. So a little bit of a frustrating game maybe for Scars. But V2, they had a great little run on the edge of the zone here as well. Reply Totem, again, they were you saw so much damage being done to teams we were kind of on board with, and it was always from the guns of Reply Totem, it seemed. But V2 here, this was one of the best holds we saw. Aurora try and move in. They think we got an easy third party here, but somehow or other, the 2v3 gets turned around.
Yeah, that was actually insane, especially against Aurora, a team that does not lose many fights, especially the ones they have advantages in. They got taken out, and that was the first game that they have fallen relatively early, and Totem was able to ride that momentum to a pretty successful game, Gaskin.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what everyone had to do to try and get into that last circle and the amount of space there was to play as well, because the early buildings have been taken by so many teams that if you were one of those teams rotating in late, like Totem Esports, you had 2 decisions. You either had to just try and play edge, hope that the teams would fight each other so you could then take one of the spots as the circle closed, or you could get aggressive on one of the buildings and try and play underneath it or above it. In the end, they went underneath. They managed to get some KP. They had some fantastic fights, but it is never going to win you a game when you don't have the spot.
Goodness, a 16 kill game. I'm sorry to cut you off, Gaskin, but again, EU with the high kill, high octane games. We saw it last week, multiple 19 kill games. I think there were 3 of them, which breaks the record for all of the high kill games we saw in North America for all of Split 2 last season. Ascend with 16 this time, 28 points. That'll skyrocket them in leaderboards, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, what a game. What a couple of games from Ascend. And with that kind of performance, even though we've only had 3 matches and we haven't even seen World's Edge yet, they've got to be feeling good about their potential to win the tournament today. I mean, it's a monster game. That kind of game you do not see very often, and that comes down to having great positioning, but also recognizing when your opportunities to strike are when other teams are fighting. Ascend have been so good at that in the last 2 games. Have been a great example of how to play towards those end zones.
Dominance personified for Ascend. 57 points after 3. They are absolutely running away from this competition right now, doubling the score of the team behind them, more than doubling. If Ascend can even just play decent, let alone the fact that they've been playing great these last 3 games, they got this one in the bag here. What a showing for Ascend. Let's go ahead and take a look at our top 10 kill leaderboard, though, as we wrap up halftime here after Storm Point. It's Lufka, the rookie, the controller player, new addition to this Ascend team, on top with 8. But guess what? It's all Ascend all day, Gaskin, with post-kill and Kashera right behind him.
Yeah, not really surprised when Ascend are playing in this way, and the manner of which they're playing as well. So much confidence as they engage into every single fight. It's not a surprise that they're in the top 10 kills. All 3 of them absolutely shredding.
That's right, the Polish sensation, as we'll start calling him, the Polish rookie in Lufka. It's been great to see his emergence here in the ALGS, and Onset, that seems to be the recipe for success. It was Team Liquid that really started it in North America by picking up Gildersons, picking up Sykes with, the 3rd controller player. Find a ranked controller player demon that maybe switched from console to PC. Now every team is kind of rinsing and repeat. Ascend took the same recipe, and they've been finding some success here.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost become like the hybrid is the way to success here, right? You have everything covered if you're Ascend. If you have that controller player, when you get into those short range final battles, you know that he's going to be able to do a huge amount of damage output to put you in great positions to win the game. And we saw it from Lufka as well. I mean, we're going to watch his POV here. Anyone trying to move in who runs into a talented controller player is just going to get shredded. It really is as simple as that.
Especially with any SMG or an R301 in their hands. That is for sure, Gaskin.
It is, and I mean, it's not just about how well they've been shooting, but it's how they've been positioning themselves and when they've been engaging in those fights as well. In a mid-map circle like we just saw in game number 3, it's so difficult to try and prioritize which areas you want to push because you're always worried where that circle is going to be pulling. But what they did do well is they listened, they engaged in fights, they made sure they picked up kills on teams that were weak, and then they would take those positions that team had already gained. So they were just winning over certain buildings in certain areas to make sure that they could be in a confident position for their next fight.
Yeah, and I'm so glad we actually had a chance to watch back those replays from Ascend's point of view with the team watch right there, because we didn't actually catch that from their point of view in that late game. But it was not as easy as we thought. Lufka down to 20 HP was absolutely frying and was the difference maker in that fight. Onset, it really looked like. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I mentioned that, the armor swap came in and you're like, oh, this is not the armor swap you want to see. But then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'll do what I can. And it just deals 123, 126 damage. I can't remember what it was from one spray. So that kind of position is where you want to put a controller player in. If you are Ascend, you get him into the position to do that short range damage. And if you've got someone who's as accurate as he can be, that's a recipe for success. And Ascend have found it in those last 2 games.
Young Prince of EU Apex coming from Poland in Lufka, performing and dominating here in his second outing here in the ALGS Pro League. We saw him last week, didn't perform as well as a team in Ascend on Sunday, but in this lobby so far, it's all Ascend all day, as they will ascend to the top of the leaderboards by an absolute mile. But Gaskin, it wasn't just Team Ascend. We saw some unique things come through and some solid things out of Team Aurora still in the top 3.
Yeah, I think Aurora's composition is always going to be a little bit of a risky one. It's something a little bit different. However, it's always going to reward you in different ways. You are going to be maybe more confident in fights. Maybe you're more confident in those legends. The rotation we saw in some of these games from Aurora is not something that's very easy without a Valkyrie, but they were still able to kind of get through with just brute force. And some of the ways they were fighting was absolutely incredible. Maybe not game 3 where they lost that kind of 3 versus 2 and they might not think about this fight too many times as they go forward in the future, but I still think it was the right decision. They wanted to pick up the extra KP on a team that was a little bit vulnerable. Unfortunately for them, other teams would get involved and V2 just had the game of their lives at the end there.
Yeah, that's right. And Aurora ended up getting taken out in game 3, so that's why you don't see them, closer or narrowing the gap between number 1 and Ascend. But ultimately, a really, really good showing from them. We'll see how they will perform on World's Edge. And honestly, Onset, it was probably one of the greater tragedies of ALGS champs. The fact that we didn't have a chance to see Aurora. I don't think we talked about it enough. But Team Empire, now known as Aurora, after what they showed us in Sweden as a top 3 team in that competition, not able to compete at ALGS champs due to some visa issues. It's good to see them back and competing again in the Pro League.
Yeah, but if there's anything to fire you up and get that desire back, it's little setbacks like that, right, where you want to kind of, be like, okay, we didn't unfortunately get to the dance this time and it wasn't something that was in our hands, but then when that opportunity comes around next time, we're going to prove that we deserve to be there and we're going to go one step further. So I think there's a lot to look forward to from this lineup. I think they're going to be extremely dangerous, not just today, but I think throughout the entirety of the Pro League. And I think when we're looking at, LAN events coming up as well, it's even more difficult to get there now than it seemed previously. There's not as many spots available, so you got to work even harder. And sometimes maybe that fire is what you need to just push yourself over that threshold.
Yeah, got to completely agree with that. Obviously, the Russian players moving to Kazakhstan What looked like a Kansas City Pioneers dynasty in the remaking for Nasky, Strafey, and Dell has turned into an Ascension. That's right, Ascend on top. When we thought the KCP boys would be flying through this lobby, but they are instead in 6th place, behind the likes of Ascend in 1st, Fut Esports in 2nd, Aurora in 3rd, Game Ward in 5th, and the Kansas City Pioneers in 6th, right behind Gaiman Gladiators. Let's go ahead and bring our casters back into the action as we jump into game number 4. Can KCP bring themselves back to the top, or will Ascend continue to dominate? Onset.
It's a very
predictions.
It's a good question. You're trying to get predictions out of me again, John. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I will let you know what happens at the end of the games. God bless you for trying. You can keep trying. It's not going to happen. But I am excited to get back onto World's Edge, because that is one thing that I am certainly looking forward to, because I feel like Storm Point always gives us a good indication of who's hot in the lobby, right? Who's winning team fights, who's looking really strong. But World's Edge gives us a little bit more of that micro, a little bit more of that late game decision making that we have seen Ascend look extremely good at. And with their combination of those previous 2 games, I feel like, you know, Ascend have got to be looking extremely good here, Dan.
Yeah, you look at what's happened in that initial 3 maps and how everyone's been playing. Now you move over to a more comfortable map, right? It still is. I don't care what anyone says. No one really is more comfortable on Storm Point. It still is a bit of a spanner in the works for everyone and how they play. World's Edge last week was so consistent when it comes to what I was talking about right at the top of the show, what you were talking about right at the top of the show. The final circle correlating to drop spot. We saw a finish in staging, won by the team that dropped in staging. We saw a finish in Lava Siphon, won by the team that landed in Lava Siphon. And we saw a finish in Survey South, won by a team dropped in Survey. So we really are seeing those teams now making the most of their drop spots when the circle does come into their POI. But again, I'm looking at those teams who are having to go a little bit further. Not necessarily who's getting the victory, but who is able to pick up those points as they traverse the map. Who is able to win those engagements so they can pick up as much points as possible in those bad circles.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an interesting way to look at things, right? We're always looking at, you know, what's the pattern that's emerging? Like we mentioned, it seems to be a placement heavy, dependent on circle that we're seeing, you know. To break it down in the simple terms, like you just mentioned, whoever is getting the zone closest to them seems to have a very, very strong game, potentially winning it. But if you kind of keep that in mind and imagine those circles are going to be shared, like you're saying, then it becomes almost okay, that's a given. What is going to be the factor that pushes teams up the leaderboard when they don't have that? So I feel like for teams like, you know, Totem that we just saw in that last game, who had to make a little bit of Scarpa across and picked up some decent KP doing. Ascend, who have had to make a little bit of you know, not the closest of rotations. They've had to travel a little bit of ground and are still picking up wins. I think that sets them up extremely well here for some big games on World's Edge as well.
Yeah, I mean, look at like Team Fut, for example. They had great circles in games 1 and 2, and they made the most out of it with a victory and then what, a 5th place finish or something around there. But then they came almost dead last in game 3 when they had to move that little bit further and they were out of their comfort zone. Apex Legends has always been about consistency. Yes, it's about winning the circles that are usually heavily favorited towards you, but then making the most of those circles that are going to be a little more of a struggle. So sometimes that is going to be better for those teams who are good at fighting, that can play edge, that don't really get affected when they have to move a long distance. So you need to have that variety. You can be a good team at holding, but you've got to be a good team at traversing and attacking teams at the same time.
Early on here, Turkish Stars are going to be shooting a couple of pigeons in the fields as they have that charge rifle in their hand. Krelik's already managed to get that purple armor a little bit closer to red with a couple of shots being landed. It's Pioneers who are trying to escape their clutches at the moment. If you look at the comparison of the armors, you wouldn't be too surprised maybe to see Turkish Stars try and move up on this one. Nasky's going to have to hold the line at the moment. He's got the 30-30 to do so, but having seen the information from those shields with that charge rifle, then maybe Turkish Stars thinking about having a little poke here, but you can see that Pioneers have managed to stabilize for now. But if that's me, Dan, and I'm thinking early game here, there's a little bit of time for us to fight, I might be thinking to push that one.
Yeah, it's always risky when it's the first game of a new map and you're trying to feel your kind of way into it a little bit. But if you do have the consistency from the previous 3 games, you're feeling a little bit hot, you're feeling a little bit excited, it might encourage you to get involved in a few more engagements, that's for sure. Looking at this circle and look at where it could be heading, I mean, a lot of potential again as it's pulling slightly west, but I think a lot of teams will start banking on the likes of staging, maybe just West of Fragment as well, we could see kind of a landslide area finish. So we're seeing a lot of teams already get to the middle of the map at the moment, trying to find some positioning, trying to find some estate where they can play with. And then there's a few teams that are going to be very late to the party. Fire Beavers are still outside of the circle. Foot are still outside of the circle. It means that they can loot heavy and they can get some fantastic gear on board, but they're going to have a difficult journey when they do try and get into that circle.
Yeah, something that we should kind of highlight as well as moving back over the World's Edge is, let me make sure that I get this sentence correct because it sounds cleverer than it is. The end zones are feel algorithmically more different. See, I messed it up. Algorithmically different.
The algorithms are different.
The algorithms are different. Well done, thank you. To what we see, and they're a little bit less predictable. So you're going to have to see teams basically kind of hedge their bets on where they think it's going, but be prepared for another move if that circle does get a little bit funky and pull away. So you are going to see teams maybe not being able to have as much success with just getting a solid early spot and what you previously have seen, because you do see those bring pulls away where teams all of a sudden from plan A have to have that plan B and C in order to make their next move. So it's not as kind of cut and pasted, I would say, those end games as we've seen previously. We'd have obviously an indication of where the zone's going to go, but even a shift kind of 20 feet to the north when you've seen it pull south could completely throw a team's game off.
It's why a lot of teams will have the priority positions they try and get. They will know, they will look at this first circle and they say, okay, these are the 3 areas where we need to be trying to get. What is the easiest one and what is the most likely that we will get a victory off the back of it if it pulls X, Y, or Z? There's all these calculations that a lot of coaches would have drilled into the teams. We're starting to see how important coaches are, even more so the further we get into Apex Legends. We're seeing changes of coaches through teams as well to try and get more chemistry, and basically just trying to find coaches that work even harder, because if you can strategize correctly, if you can find those positions and also try and outplay your opponents knowing what positions they would usually go for, it could be the difference between not just, you know, winning a game, but also potentially getting all the way to playoffs and maybe even the championships.
Algorithmically different.
There we go.
Nailed it. There we go. Cut and paste that in the rebroadcast onto what I said previously. But for now, for esports, you're completely right. I think coaches and analysts have certainly become almost, you know, a must-have. And the level that we're seeing from teams and analysts really raises the game of Apex Legends to microseconds on decision-making, on how they want to play situations, what teams they can expect to play certain ways if they do see them nearby. And for esports, the only way they're going to be playing right now is vertically as they try and head towards Landslide, or maybe even a little bit more north towards Countdown. However, they've got to get across that open ground. We are going to see this zone start to close as well, as you can see on your screens at home, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly where that zone does start to pull. For now, for esports, a little bit of a risky position for them to land in, but kind of the only option available here. They can be shot from above, they can be shot from the sides, but they look like they're stabilizing for now.
Yeah, and a lot of teams did start to bank on it being kind of around Landslide, if not northern so. There were a couple of teams down towards staging that are now having the unfortunate news that they are going to have to move very much further north and probably run into a lot of teams, because there is going to be a lot of alleyways that they have to go down where teams are probably already set up and ready for a little bit of a mugging. But Foot have been able to find a position, so that's good for them. They were looking a little bit iffy when they were on the outside. Teams that are going to struggle, Fire Beavers, I think, are slowly getting into the next circle, so they should be fine as I look in the map overhead. But GG, they are going to have to move up ever so slightly, but they should be okay with where they're currently ending up. I don't think there's going to be a team strictly holding them out as they arrive. It's more so when they get to the next circle after this one where there could be a little bit more trouble.
And Gaming Gladiator is going to have to look for opportunity here, whether it's a couple of teams fighting, whether it's one player not looking that they can just 3-2-1 and get that knock, whatever it might be. They've got to be extremely attentive to what is happening in the lobby in front of them in order to force their way into a solid position. Fire Beavers trying to force their way into a position themselves at the moment. Once again, the Watson fences are making that such a difficult push to make. Looking at the map overhead again, KCP bang in the center of zone. They are not moving for now. I think they have control of that tower where you can imagine things are going to be ended. But for now, Fire Beavers, this could be the end of their game. You can see they're taking so much damage. On the other side of that, though, you can also see that Nightmare Esports are taking a little bit of damage, and there might be third-party opportunities on either side of this fight. So for now, Nightmare Esports seem to hold off the push from Fire Beavers, but now comes that third party from the north.
And it does show that Fire Beavers, you know, not happy with an average position and just waiting out the game. They wanted to get into one of these better positions. They knew that Fragment West was not going to be safe, so they had to keep moving further west. As you can see on this screen, that circle is going to be getting closer towards Countdown, closer towards this middle area with where this tower is. And Nightmare Esports, even though they're okay and they did win that engagement, they lost a player. they've got the beacon, they've got the banner, so as long as they can deliver it, then maybe they could get back up to a full set of 3, but it's highly unlikely with the amount of teams that are around them right now.
Yeah, I feel like it's more of a My Chemical Romance situation right now. They are not okay. That I'm not okay is how they're feeling. They do manage to get a few cells off, but unfortunately having to play as a 2, even with this position, as that circle closes, more and more teams are going to have angles on them. It's going to be difficult for them to survive in late towards that end game. For GG, they're still trying to kind of formulate their plan to move in. They've got a couple of Watson fences down to try and protect their backs, but Hardeki's just trying to see if there's any teams that are late rotating behind them at the moment. And it looks like Hardeki is already smelling a couple of players out, and somehow he threads the needle with a little 41 there with the 2 times on the wingman.
Team that have gone under the radar a little bit in this game but are in a good spot is KCP. Pioneers find themselves in a decent position that they can work with, and as long as they can stay out of enemies' eyes for a little short while, they should be in one of the better positions as this game closes out. But GG are still making their way into the circle. As I said, I don't think many teams are going to hold them at this area right on the southwest, but as they get further into the circle, that's when they're going to start to meet teams. Those who are already in landslide, those who have already taken some of the prime real estate in this area.
Well, Gamma Gladiators here, the interesting thing for them is if their backs are clear, and they are the last team to arrive on edge here, with the teams being stacked up in the middle of landslide, there might be a couple of opportunities for them to third party and pick up KP and kind of clean the way in front of them. And also, by doing so, clean this side of the map. So they've got a lot of opportunity actually in front of them if they manage to make sure that their back is clear. But just looking on our overheads at the moment, I'm pretty sure that GG do not have their back completely and utterly clear. Reply Totem are on the edge of zone here as well, just trying to hold out a couple of teams. And you can see the zone is starting to influence things at the moment. Only round 2, so it's not going to burn too much. But as we move into round 3, those health meds are going to be depleted very quickly. And speaking of GG, they are eliminated, Dan. So a big misplay somehow coming in from them.
Just as you were talking about it, I watched a team on the map overhead just stroll on up behind them, and they got absolutely timing, did GG. A team just getting an easy shot in the back on them, and they couldn't hold them off, unfortunately. So they thought they had timed it correctly. They thought they were going to be the last team arriving to the party in the southwest of the circle. However, they were not, and it means they were punished for it, and they are our first team eliminated here on World's Edge. Very frustrating for them because they had been so careful when they were taking precautions walking up to the circle, but unfortunately, timing sometimes can hit you like that.
Yeah, sometimes you got to think, even though the zone is behind you, it's only zone 2, so there still could be a team lurking there, and that's exactly what they found out for themselves. Ascend, the winners of games 2 and 3 today, our previous 2, going back to back, looking to complete the 3-peat now if they can pick up a win here on World's Edge. They're stuck inside of Countdown at the moment, and they've kind of got their backs to the zone. They're going to be safe inside of the next circle too, but the great thing about this comp is the fact that they've got crypto, so they can scan all of the information that they need, and also they hit that EMP on a couple of Watsons, then they're going to take those fences down as well.
Ascend seem to have nailed this circle yet again, as it does seem to be shifting heavily over towards Countdown now. So bad news for a lot of those teams that were thinking it was going to end maybe in the open area, in the tower side here on the east side of this current circle that you see, but it looks like it's very much going to be pulling west. So teams like KC Pioneers are going to have to move. NM, who we saw earlier as a 2, they're also going to have to go quite far to get into the next circle. So when you see this circle happen, when you see that pull shift, you are probably going to have to take the decision of, all right, do we just go for a bit of KP? Do we start to get more aggressive now, take some more fights, try and take some maybe good positions off other teams? But that's not going to be easy when there's still 19 squads left in this circle. This is something that's also very different to Storm Point. World's Edge, we usually get more squads alive in these type of circles.
I mentioned Nightmare Esports a little bit earlier on. We saw them have that fight with Fire Beavers, and I was saying they weren't okay. Well, they actually look okay for now. The 2 surviving, Limek and NM7, holding hands for the rest of this game for sure, but they are going to be pressurized at some point, and there is that damage coming in. Limek just gets absolutely deleted by Joke, and now you can also see in the kill feed as well that KCP are involved in a couple of fights going down. High Peak decide it's time for them to retreat back to their teammate on the tower. So you can see the amount of room that they actually had, and the amount of room they were actually commanding was very impressive from them.
Yeah, and here's the area I was talking about from KCP. They think they'll be okay at the moment, but I think they will realize that when the next circle comes in, they're going to have to move a little bit further west. But I don't think that'll be too much of an issue for them because they are such a good fighting team, and they, of course, have the Valkyrie to make a move if they need a desperate play. But for now, they can wait. They can get aggressive on the team that's close to them if they really want the KP. But with this Kraber, they can kind of watch from a distance and hope that someone walks into those crosshairs.
Probably wondering here why Strafe is deciding not to pull the trigger. Sometimes you don't want to give the information away that you have that Kraber. You want to wait for the perfect shot to create the opportunity for where you want to move. But sometimes when things line up, you got to pull the trigger. 5 Evas eliminated in the meantime, and Strafey just dishing out haircuts at this point, not removing any heads.
SAF have lost one. Blast's the new addition. He gets taken down, but still could be revived. The 189 is going to hit hard, as Aurora now will know there is danger in the vicinity, and the Pioneers look to try and take full advantage of this. They're pushing up on this team.
Yeah, they're going to move up on this, and Strafey might be able to swing left here and get even more damage down, but there's the portal. They managed to get away. They managed to maybe get in position to get a res off as well. You can see that Strafey wants to keep that pressure on. He does that with the body shot, and there's Nasky with the finish as well. Malawan taken down.
Oh, and again,
he's going wild.
Absolute ease when it's in the right hands, and he wants to try and find more as well. The shield can only save you for so long, and it doesn't matter in the end. Aurora eliminated an 18th. The Pioneers do take full advantage of that early knock, and unfortunately Aurora just couldn't back off in time, couldn't get that res to work.
I mean, when you got the Kraber, we know how strong it is, and you got to put it to work, and that's exactly what happened. Strafey just cleaning house, taking down numerous players, a couple of headshots in there. It's everything you want to see from a mouse and keyboard player when he's got that Kraber in his hands. And now Pioneers, off the back of that, are going to feel super pumped up. They're going to want to go forward and get some more KP. Bitfix go down in the meantime, as we have 16 squads now remaining.
I think it happened at the perfect time for Pioneers as well. They got the knock as they got the circle info, so they realized that they probably are going to have to be aggressive. They're going to have to take advantage of KP when it is available, because this is not going to be an easy circle to get into. But if anyone can do it, it's probably the Pioneers. They haven't had that kind of pop-off game yet. There's so much expectation, I think, on this Pioneers roster after how they've been performing in scrims. So now is a good time to try and execute and to show why you could still win this week. As it just seems like the Kraber hitting every headshot right now today.
It's like an episode of Oprah. You get a Kraber, you get a Kraber, you get a headshot. And at the moment, Blast has found himself with the big red gun on his screen as well. There's another 140, and at the moment, it is not safe here on World's Edge. You stand anywhere, then there's a pretty good chance you're going to get hit by one of these big bullets from the big gun.
But you gotta go. 5 seconds till this round closes, and look at that kill feed. Scars, they get eliminated. High Peak also are gonna go down. SAF have to step up ever so slightly, and Blast trying to scout and survey the land to hit some shots. Will miss a couple, but at the moment there's so much damage being done everywhere. 3 Muppets also fall. 11 squads remain.
Blast is having the time of his life right now with his Kraber in his hands. He's seeing people in front of him not looking at him. He's hitting headshots, he's hitting body shots, and he's putting all the damage into the column that you would want to see from a player. He's currently set of 5-7-4, and all of that I think has come from the hands of the Kraber, but he's going to have to hit a few more shots here, as Heroes will go down. V2 will go down as well. Oh, narrowly misses that one. Trent the Needle on the gen. Another head pops up for just a few seconds, but Whack-A-Mole, he's not going to win the prize this time.
And all the meanwhile, as all these teams are battling outside of this next circle, Ascend still sitting pretty right dead center. Actually, they are the furthest west team, but they are pretty much dead center of this circle, as they have been for quite some time. One of the few teams within the next circle. And I'm sure they're going to be looking to try and make it back to back to back, which is not something we see often, but we have seen historically in Pro League, as SAF under a little bit of bombardment right now. When do they decide to go? It seems like any corner they take, there's more Valkyrie missiles waiting for them around the corner.
Yeah, the missile swarm really starting to just kind of grief away at them at the moment, not letting them heal fully, not letting them get fully healthy before they have to think about their next move. And Blast still has pressure on his shoulder now. He's got 10 seconds left. The question is, can he hit a shot here to create an opening for KP? Can he hit a shot to create an opening for a rotation? And Blast decides, this team on the right, I've been poking at you, I've been prodding at you, it's time to put you into a death box. 140 is only going to be hitting the gen, but that's going to stop all of the grenades from being eaten up by that thing as Blast goes in. But unfortunately, it's looking like Pioneers might be able to hold the line, but no! They are all going to go down as well, and it will be SAF who come out and somehow are still alive.
SAF still alive. Foot lost a couple of players, so did Pioneers. They are all now really weak and are just going to be walking into the chomping arms of everyone else waiting for them. SAF do finally go down. Foot look like they're going to be struggling. a little bit, but actually, no, they've got into a position. It's okay for them. They picked up KP from a distance, excuse me. It was SAF who lost the 2, and now Foot could just wait on the edge of this circle. It's Turkish Stars and Phoenix Legacy who lose all 3 players. 6 squads remain. Ascend still alive, center circle. Totem have also been able to find 1 player still.
Look at Strafey. Look at Strafey. I mean, if you wanted to have a definition of map knowledge, this is exactly it. Finding somewhere to play. And somehow, the player who's up on that silo had no idea that he was there.
It's almost like Strafey is the beaming light in all of our lives, as he shines down on everyone below and tries to get some extra placement points here for the Pioneers into the top 5. But elsewhere, actual gunfights happening. For esports still alive at the moment. And they're in a pretty good spot with the setup that they've got, with the information they can get from Taylor as well on the Seer. They're going to know exactly where the teams are going to be pushing them from, or where they could be coming from. It's what Ascend do from the position where they find themselves farthest west, because they've been there for so long, Mark. That have they got a little bit of cobwebs now on their guns? Have they shot enough people in the last few minutes? Are they going to be able to win the engagement when it does happen?
Well, the good thing here for Ascend is they got a real opportunity here to go back to back to back, because everybody else is on the eastern side of this zone. They're going to have to move towards Ascend, and like we saw in game number 2, if all the teams have to move towards you, you know they're going to be weak. You know they're going to be taking damage. So Ascend could have a realistic opportunity here to actually close out 3 games in a row. It's been a masterclass of zone knowledge from them so far. It's been a masterclass in the last 2 games of closing out, having got that position. The question is, can they do it again here? If they can, you have to feel like maybe they've got this week wrapped up.
Oh, it's not just zone position, isn't it? Like, we've seen the amount of gun skill from them as well. They've been getting it done. But esports do get eliminated in the end. It was a little bit too much for them to try and push through that chokehold. Forge are still alive, and they are going to be above. I think that's Strafey. Yep, no, it's not. Gamewood actually are going to get eliminated here. So 3 squads remaining, and I think Strafey is still one of them. So this is a 3v3 versus 1.
Yeah, Strafey's a problem here. They do not know where he is. Forge looking down at Ascend in the straight 3v3, and while all this is going down, Strafey is just waiting for the opportunity to strike. A couple of knocks on either side here, and Strafey can reintroduce himself to this fight. EMP going to be used. Grenades going to go down as well. They are going to be burning. They are going to be frying. And now they have to make their move. So Ascend now get that first knock. Ro will fall. Kashira will move in as well. But where is that solo player? Now he introduces himself. It's Strafey who's going to be able to get into a position. It's 2 players alive here for Ascend. And it looks like maybe Strafey has decided that the last thing he wants to do is cause some problems. He's got a 1v1 on top, but he can't win it. Ascend will win back-to-back games here. They are looking dominant.
Such good map knowledge from Ascend. Great rotation, great positioning as they saw those circles start to get closer towards them. And they were so patient in where they played as well. They did enough damage to teams that were coming nearby to make sure that they held their position and no one really dared try it taken away from them. But how they executed that final circle, it was almost too easy for them with the position they were in. They allowed all the other teams to do damage to each other. Eventually they get involved. Strafey threw a little bit of a spanner in the works, as he always does, but an amazing endgame in the end.
I just thought for a second, just for a second, Dan, I believed that somehow KCP were going to pull it off and Strafey was going to be able to pull it off when those knocks went down. But Ascend just so efficient in that team fight, there wasn't really an opportunity for him to create a scenario where he could move in and clean up damage that had been done. But I think the stories, we can't talk about anything else but Ascend, right? Ascend, every single time that we've seen them on our screens, they are not only in a great position, but their management of those endgame situations is so difficult to pick any kind of, you know, the thing that they've done wrong. It has been great shots. It has been great effort at forcing teams to have to make that first move. And just, again, just making sure when they're in those team fights, they're not overextending. They're not giving an opportunity to any other team to get a knock and put them on the back foot. They've just been perfect.
And they've been 3 very different final circles that Ascend have had to play through as well. 3 different scenarios. You had the first one on Storm Point where they had to have a really kind of late rotation where it was a really risk or reward moment. They were rewarded with one of the high points and they had to play it in a way where they were kind of patient and they shot from above, but they got a lot of KP. Then the second game where they had to fight tooth and nail to get into their position. They really had to work for that circle, but the damage they were outputting was insane. And then you've got this final circle where we didn't see them on our screens very much because they weren't really doing anything. They kind of got to their position, they hunkered down, they waited, they forced a few teams away from them, but they just bided their time because they knew they had one of the best positions in the game as the circle came closer. It's so good to have this consistency across a variety of different end games here, and I think we're learning a lot about this Ascend roster. They really are the real deal.
Yeah, I agree. And once again, we're also seeing the difference in, like I said, end circles between our map that we saw earlier on Stormpoint and here on World's Edge. From the highlights as well, I'm sure we're going to see quite a lot of Kraber shots coming in. But I think a lot of players, a lot of teams maybe weren't expecting that zone to pull in the way that it did. A lot of teams maybe thinking this is a drill site finish. This is going to be where that drill tower is. It's going to be maybe pulling a little bit away from Landslide to the north. But to have that hard pull over to the western side in back towards Countdown was pretty crazy to see.
Well, guess where Ascend dropped though, Mark? Just south of Countdown. Again, it's not very far. They had to move, but again, they're playing it perfectly. It was a gimme for them, but other maps have not necessarily been as much of a gimme for them. They really have had to work a little extra bit harder with those rotations, and it's so tough for other teams when you get into a final circle like this one, like the one we're seeing on our very screens, when you just look up and there's Watson fences protected around the high ground and you know that everything is against you. And even though Forge gave it their best go as they were pushing in, I think Strafey, being that last remaining player, he did throw a spanner in the works. It meant you couldn't be confident in the push because you didn't know if there was kind of two players waiting around the corner, whether it was a solo, was it a three. You had to be a little bit more cautious with your push. And unfortunately, it just meant that they got absolutely destroyed in that final 3v3.
Well, we saw Strafey try and do what he could. Maybe if he would have got that knock, then there might have been an opportunity for a shield swap for the 1v1. But, I mean, we'll take a look at the match 4 results. And no surprise to see Ascend on top. 17 points for them. But Pioneers, a big game coming in from them. We saw them fall in that second place after Strafey managed to rat his way to that position. But the fact they picked up 9 kills alongside that, Dan, means they actually come out with the most points in the lobby.
Yeah, amazing that he was able to get that much placement. Imagine if he hadn't have got into that position, if it wasn't a Valkyrie on the Pioneers side, we could have been seeing only a few placement points, and then suddenly it's a very different points total. It keeps them within a shout of getting a result and getting some extra points this week. You just got to try and stay as close as possible to Ascend right now, who seem to be absolutely farming these lobbies.
We'll take a look at the standings after we've done here. And yes, indeed, Ascend by far and away the standout team today. 74 points on the board. That is a huge amount of points for any team to have after just 4 games. We've still got 2 to go, by the way. Meaning that they are, of course, sat in first place at the moment. But for Pioneers, they're sat in second place. 38 points for them. But the rest of the field extremely close at the moment. And looking like with a couple of games to play, even though Pioneers are sat in second place, Dan, that they might have an opportunity to have that taken away from them pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that are going to be biting at their heels here. And even though Pioneers might be, still thinking about first, I think it's about prioritizing solid, comfortable games here. Don't try and overdo it to try and catch Ascend and try and secure some extra points. Make sure you finish at least second, because as we look at, the grand scheme of things in securing points so you can get towards playoffs and yada yada, it's about consistency at the end of the day. It's not about
Apex Legends Global Series, Monster Energy, your official energy drink for the ALGS.
Welcome back, everybody, to the ALGS Pro League. EMEA is dominated at the moment by one team, and that team is Ascend. 3 games back-to-back. They pick up first-place finishes, and with 2 games left, Dan, the question is surely they can't make it 4, right? Surely not.
With the variety in how they've won each circle, I wouldn't put it past them. Honestly, with how they've been playing, it doesn't matter whether the circle is landing near their POI or whether they have to get aggressive, whether they have to rotate late, whether they rotate early. They seem to have been challenged in every way possible, but have had an answer every single time. But you'd imagine that eventually that consistency should fall. You know, the stats would suggest that no team is consistent enough to be getting back-to-back games, right? But, I mean, if anyone's going to do it, surely it happens now if Ascend have been playing, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I just got to, you just get a weird feeling about something that's going to happen. Maybe we're going to see 4 games back-to-back won by Ascend. I think we're seeing the blueprint of what they've done so far that would suggest if they get towards the end zone and they get into a half-decent position in that final kind of zone 3, zone 4, whatever it might be, they've been so effective at executing on their endgame plan that it's difficult to see anyone really contesting them at the moment. I think that KCP have been in some good positions, but they haven't been in great positions, maybe apart from that game number 2 where they had, that good position inside of the building on wall. But I think at the moment, Ascend have just looked dominant, and I don't really see any team standing up not only to the speed at which they're rotating, but the team fighting potential that they're having as well.
I think the true test will be if we see a circle pull as far southeast as possible, like the furthest point away.
I want to see it now. I want to see it, see if they can do it. Yeah,
I want to see the most difficult challenge for them because they landed pretty central when it came to Storm Point. They land, close to landslide and countdown here on World's Edge, so it can be a bit of a shift. If the circle does pull as far away as possible, you see them landing down towards kind of landslide area and towards staging as well. They're going to have a lot more room to play with. Maybe they've worked something out here that there's not going to be a team at staging yet. Okay, they've got a lot of room now. They can get a lot of loot, can Ascend, you can see on your screens. But the big question for me, where does that circle go?
Well, we're about to find out, and it's going to be a very interesting call and very interesting for the story of Ascend, and it looks like Lava Siphon might be where we're going at the moment. Maybe a little bit of a pull towards Harvester. But again, you talk about access to circle. Ascend are going to be pretty pleased with where that circle is going. Then it's very possible, but for Gaming Gladiators, I mean, that's a little bit of a gift for them. I mean, they've been really struggling so far at the moment, like they did in week number 1. A zone like this is going to be fresh news for them, and I think a very important thing for them to see just to restore the confidence.
I did notice Ascend have access to a beacon as well, so they're going to get even more map knowledge and circle knowledge that they can make their way into that circle and get one of the better positions potentially again. High Peak are having a little bit of a scuffle early on and maybe looking to take advantage of some KP. You don't often see these early fights happening, but it seems like maybe World's Edge is not as easy for these teams to find POIs as it was on Storm Point.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's happening here as well by Survey Camp, which isn't, let's be honest, the hottest of properties, is somewhat of a surprise, but it seems like with one not going, with no one really taking too much damage, both teams are going to disengage and maybe just try and play this one a little bit smarter. Instead, there is actually one knock, excuse me, and that is what is known as a polite shake of the head, saying, good sir, I appreciate you inviting yourself to this party. However, the invitation was not extended to you. Please come back another time.
Yeah, I think that was one of the members that were playing as a 2 today, maybe just trying to stretch themselves out and perhaps trying to get some extra loot here or there, but can't really find a home today. A shame for them. Elsewhere, NM seem to be under a little bit of fire as well. It's the Fire Beavers who are looking to try and get aggressive on them, and NM are very much retreating. Nightmare are having a little bit of a nightmare, and they are getting the hell out of there.
Fire Beavers chasing things down here at the Vault Tunnel, just to the edge of Fragment. No real impact being had, though, at the moment. You can see that OJ Rain's got blue armors as Taskmaster also going to be joining him. Unfortunately, they've dressed the same, which is always an awkward conversation to have when you both turn up. But Not Impulse, he's dressed in white. He's looking flashy. He's looking good at the moment, but would maybe think about upgrading a little bit if he has the opportunity to do so. Maybe thinking about hitting a crafter on the way or seeing if he can level that up as that game does progress. But for now, Fire Beavers, they've, again, been a little bit quiet today. I think a lot of eyes maybe on this lineup throughout Pro League for some of those pop-off games that they've had. The good news for them, of course, is the fact that with Ascend being the point sponges of the lobby, so to speak, it really is still a lobby which is completely can change in the next few games if a team has one of those games that Fire Beavers is more than capable of doing.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, the likes of Pioneers who are in second place, who would love to win this week and would love to get the maximum points, you've also got to be looking at, you know, other teams are going to be able to catch them up. Other teams are going to be close to them. So they have to just focus on what's at hand, and that's the bigger picture. That's getting towards playoffs. That's getting towards the World Championships at the end of everything. A lot of teams making their way into Lava Siphon, as you had predicted. A few teams kind of banking on Harvester at the moment, but I think that judging how heavy people are pulling down towards Lava Siphon, I would imagine this is going to be a southwest finish, which is what I said I wanted. So we'll see how Ascend deal with this one, as they are currently making their way over towards Harvester. They do have that extra little bit of beacon information.
And they also have managed to pick up that first knock. No surprise to see Ascend put themselves in a perfect position to do so. And look at what an addition he's been. Really has been shredding today, doing a huge amount of damage in every fight that we seem to see him in. And just having that level of consistency in a player in those 3v3 scenarios just gives you so much confidence. And you can see that just transferring through not only him, but the rest of Ascend as well. For now, just checking the surrounding area with that crypto drone, making sure there's going to be no third parties in the vicinity. And with Ascend in the position that they are, they're going to feel pretty comfortable for now. One team who's not feeling too comfortable is going to be Phoenix Legacy. They're taking a little bit of damage themselves. The Black Hole will go down, looking to go for the wombo combo, get those grenades in there, but it looks like the rest of Fire Beavers managed to escape that dreadful wrath that can come from that combination.
So scary, these kind of early game fights as well, because you know full well that as soon as you lose one member, or as soon as one member gets knocked, you're gonna get pushed, especially in these kind of edge zone fights, because other teams are just going to try and take advantage of these fights to pick up those KP. So you've got to play it correctly. You can't take too many risks. You can't poke for too long. However, if you do manage to get that extra bit of damage, you have to also try and take advantage of it. So it's a very difficult thing to try and juggle with some of these teams, but it seems like both teams are backing off from one another at the moment, and they're more than happy just to continue their rotation. Because we saw when we were on Ascend's POV, they did have beacon information. It is going to be heading southwest down towards Lava Siphon, and maybe even further than that. There are a few teams that are going to bank on launch site too.
Well, the smoke has been vital here from Taskmaster on the Bangalore, just to give his two teammates a little bit of time to reset, because damage came in. The EMP was there as well, just to ward that team off for a few moments. And Fire Beavers kind of stuck on the edge of zone at the moment and not really being able to find a clear path towards a more central position. Phoenix Legacy, they were the team that were kind of originally inside of West Fragment that were causing Fire Beavers some problem on their rotation. Well, now they're going to be causing them maybe even more, as they've managed to take control of the top of this construction building and will be overlooking all of this fighting that's going down on this bridge.
Yeah, Phoenix Legacy, a team I think who had a better opportunity to score points in Storm Point than most, with some of the circles that were pulling their way. But unfortunately just kept getting caught out in their initial rotations, and it would have been frustrating for them losing some of those early gun engagements. So coming into World's Edge, trying to find a little bit more consistency, it's so difficult, like trying to get your head wrapped around it. You start to maybe doubt your team fight capabilities when you've lost a few. You really have to push past that and still be confident in what you can actually do as a squad, because as soon as you are running away from fights and maybe not being confident to take them, you're just giving points away.
Fire Beavers, who have had an uphill battle for the majority of this game so far, still the story is the same. Lightning Pulse has gone down. It's down to OJ Rain and Taskmaster to see what they can kind of salvage from this situation. There was that team behind. They're trying to throw that Q down to get the down body towards them, but it's not going to be able to be completed, as they will unfortunately lose that player. Turkish Stars get eliminated as well. High Peak still here as well. It's a 2v2 at the moment, but look at the shots now coming in from a distance. High Peak getting pushed from behind on the train station.
A lot of damage coming from behind, but a great Arc Star just to force that player back. Elsewhere, I did see Ascend, lost one player, or at least they got knocked. So we'll have to see later whether they're able to get that player up, but already it seems like there is going to be a little bit of a struggle. It's V2 who are the aggressors right now, though, just trying to hold out this team that was trying to get a little bit closer in.
I mean, V2 are trying to get aggressive here. They are sandwiching teams inside of Fragment. They've done damage. They just want to get that Zero down and make sure that they convert on the damage. The res has come in by the looks of things, or maybe it's still Fire Beavers with a 2. Haven't recognized that. Now you're going to see them push. The shredding of the shields will be pretty effective. Unfortunately, they can't get that knock. Somehow Taskmaster's in the feed as well. High Peak have gone down, and Fire Beavers, who have been somewhat of a shambles so far, get at least some KP as V2 finally move in here to try and finish things off.
Yeah, Fire Beavers, as they're running away, find some victims that walk in front of their path. And they do manage to get a little bit of a spoil as they walk through, but it's still V2 who are able to push in and get those final extra little bits of kills. It looks like they want even more, though. They want to finish off this Fire Beavers roster. They don't want to allow them to get away, and that's why they are even going into the red to do so. A little bit risky, I would say, and V2 probably need to give up on this eventually because they need to start thinking about how they want to play this next circle, rather so than just getting that extra little bit of a KP. Just take what you've been given and get the hell out of there.
And now you're going to see Phoenix Legacy picking up some of the pieces of loot that were left over from all of this carnage that's kind of broken down inside of the market in Fragment East. Sabs' job, just watch over the teammates. Make sure that there's no one being sneaky inside of that zone. Nobody's going to be rotating behind them. And nobody's going to cause them any problems as they try and pick up those bits and pieces. For now, it does look like we've had a pull back towards Lava Siphon. So we're going to see a pretty wild end zone. It looks like Ascend are inside of that end zone. They found somewhere to play, so the dream of the 4P is still alive for them for now.
I don't know if you noticed that kill feed there on set, but Ascend just lost 2 players, Aurora and KCP, working together to eliminate a couple of Ascend players. Kashira now left on his own. You can see there on the mini-map, still trying to stay alive, but the repeat looking unlikely. As I say that, post-kill I think might have just got brought back in. So Ascend doing what they can to try and stay alive and to try and go back to back to back to back. But it's going to be difficult.
I don't know how Ascend have done it.
They've done it.
But they've managed to get their res. They've managed to get everybody back in, and they've also managed to find a little bit of loot to play with as well. And now it looks like Kashira has decided, you know what? Whoever put us, how dare you put us into death boxes? Because I'm trying to find somewhere else for us to play, and we'll come and have another conversation towards the end game. But Ascend, unfortunately, white armors, oh, they're so fragile at this stage of the game when everyone's been leveling up those Evo shields, and at the moment, they're just feeling extremely unwelcome inside a Lava Siphon. It's Aurora again who are putting this pressure on from that most westerly side of Lava Siphon, this western building. Moving in, finally getting the finish onto Lufka. That's 1 player down, and if you're going to take a player down from Ascend who's been so dangerous today, you probably want it to be that man.
Well, we said we wanted to see Ascend with their backs against the wall with a difficult rotation, and unfortunately it has happened, and I don't think anyone will be smiling about it because we want to see Ascend, you know, get back to back to back to back. I think the teams will be smiling about it are those who are a little bit lower, right? Aurora, Pioneers, those who want to catch them will be hoping to take down Ascend and hoping that Ascend won't be scoring as heavily. But they are still alive. We've said we've seen them in a variety of different situations. You know, some circles that have gone their way, some that haven't. Now they are really in a struggling situation. And if they somehow were to pull it off, it would very much be a miracle.
Well, Aurora inside of this building. Post-kill. Still alive. Ascend still with a chance. However, the difficulty here is on Watson, you just don't have that mobility that we saw from Strafey, for example, in that last game from KCP, who can use that Valkyrie ultimate to get into the sky. The skyward dive is always going to be an option to force yourself into a good position to maybe do some damage, but he's also got a little bit of time on these banners. And I'm just saying, if he can do something magical here, get a couple of banners, maybe find himself a little mobile res beacon. The story isn't over yet in this game number 5 for Ascend. For now, though, Game, we're trying to hold this team out on the edge. They're just hiding and trying to pick away at this team who's trying to move in. Phoenix Legacy is that team. This is the team that we saw quite a few moments ago inside a Fragment, and unfortunately, they might be turned into pieces in just a few moments' time as they don't have a huge amount of heals to work with. You saw a syringe being popped. Game, we're trying to do what they can to hold them out, and they look like they've done so successfully.
Seems like every POV we go to at the moment, it's someone also in the zone, fighting in the red, where they can't see as much as they would like to, but maybe trying to pick off teams that are going to be a little bit weak after they've been tickled by that zone. But it is going to be shifting east now, is this circle, and there are teams that are set up for that, that are ready for that, one of them being the Pioneers. Is this going to be the Pioneers game, right? Is this going to be their chance to put themselves on the leaderboard? It would be the perfect time to do so when we know that Ascend are having a struggle bus of a game. So that really could shake up the leaderboards and maybe put them within a shout of winning this week.
Well, one team that's very interesting to watch right now is Fire Beavers, because they're still alive somehow in this lobby. There's 2 of them on the map. Taskmaster's done an amazing job, not just to play his life, but also to get a teammate back alongside and to fight towards this end game. Gamewood just holding down this tunnel, making sure that rotation isn't coming in behind them. You saw them using that crypto drone as well to try and track where that Valkyrie redeploy was going to come in, so that they knew that their backs would be clear and they don't have to worry about anyone moving through that zone. SAF Esports, they're the team who are trying to cause them some problems, though. A couple of shots coming in from the 30-30 just to ward them off and take control of this blue bins area. Looking pretty solid for now, but as we have that beacon information, we know that they've got a trek in front of them.
Yeah, they won't get the information for another... No, they'll get their information in about a second's time, and it's about where you go from here. You do have the Valkyrie, so you can try and jet up and maybe take one of the high ground positions, but you've got to scope across and have a look. Does anyone have that position? Is anyone going to be on top of this exact building that you're currently seeing bombarded? And do you feel confident enough to take that fight? Speaking of fights, VZD, the team who are playing with just 2, who did you lose a player earlier, back to just 2 again, but making it work into the top 16 and getting some KP on the board.
Hey, like they say, like, the best way to train with weights on, right? And that's exactly what they're doing, playing as a 2. This is going to set them up beautifully, maybe for the following weeks that is coming. Unfortunately for Fire Beavers, even though they did everything they could to be a part of this game, it just seemed like they weren't destined to at any point. They have been eliminated as we find ourselves now down to 15.
Circle will shift just southeast a little bit from this position. And VZD, they're going to be all fine and dandy for now. Elsewhere, a little bit more of a struggle for those teams who are going to be trying to move on in. Foot are under fire. They're going to be split up as well. They're trying to work their way into the circle, which they just about find themselves on the edge. And now they say, well, considering we're in and where this circle is currently pulling, we might be in one of the better positions in this game. Let's spread ourselves out. Let's take as much room as we can. Try and force those teams who were close back a little bit. Get some fences down and make this real estate ours.
Really important fight going down here for Esports as well. If they can take down this team that's on the low ground, that's causing them a little bit of problem, they know that they're not going to get climbed on, and they know they only have to focus all of the teams that are moving in from Lava Siphon, who are all stacked up upon each other. It's a very similar situation to what we saw from Ascend, right? In that game number 2, if you can take control of that high ground and then get ahead of everyone, if you are the team who's ahead and everyone is moving towards you, it's loads of KP and also a chance, to close out a first place finish. So Foot looking very, very strong right now as Gamewood take that height now on this western side of Lava Siphon.
Difficult place to hold, and they know they've got to keep moving, do Gamewood. Just checking their backs, checking every single angle at the moment. You can move with the zone here, but it's going to be tricky because then you have to maneuver your way through several different high ground positions. You've got to dip, dive, dodge, and duck your way through. As you're taking a lot of damage from the red, you are going to be in everyone's sightlines.
Yeah, you are indeed. Maybe a cell isn't the best choice here. Maybe it should have been a syringe, whatever it might be. Has it worked? Have they managed to do it? Yes, they have. Ascend will not go and complete the 4P. However, as you can see, that unfortunately for them, the last player has been eliminated. We're down to 12 squads now, and it looks like Gamewood, even though it was a desperate run through the lava, they were getting singed on their back. They survived for now. They lost 1 player, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be happy with that. SAF will be eliminated, however. 3 Muppets now move in. A little bit of a shake, a little bit of a wiggle is going to be enough to get some damage down, but 3 Muppets cannot convert on these kills.
The game that Gamewood are having at the moment, those are the ones that kind of build character as Reply Totem. They get eliminated as well. 10 squads remaining. But when you're having one of those games where you don't really have the fights and you're just running with your back to the circle and everyone just drilling you from above, it's not fun whatsoever. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to get into the next circle after next circle. But when you start to see other teams eliminated and you realize placement points are starting to crack up for you, then at least you've done your job, and you've got to get through these hard games because you will have the more comfortable games as they come. But 10 squads remaining, not much area to play with at the moment, and a lot of Watson fences down. And it's whether now you can really take advantage of these early positions you've been able to find.
Scars are still alive, and this is so vital for them. We mentioned how tight the leaderboards are, right? With 10 squads remaining, Scars, who have been a little bit anonymous so far in the lobby, have a chance to jump up those leaderboards and just give themselves an opportunity with 1 game still remaining to really have a little bit of a strong run towards the end of this series today. Scars know there's a team below them. They also know that they have good access to the zone, but look at where that zone is pulling. Half of it is in the lava, so there's not going to be a huge amount of playable area for these teams to play with. That's why you're seeing everyone being so careful, showing trepidation as Gamewood will be eliminated as well. Taishin is now the kill leader in the lobby. The German's starting to come alive.
Gamewood finally put out of their misery as their annoying and frustrating game gets put to a miserable end. But Scars, even though they did the damage, they're looking to do a little bit more and maybe ruin some more people's games as they will be able to hold this team out there inside. They've got the gen down as well just to regen those shields, but the swaps are also there for them. And the team that are stuck inside right now is Aurora. How are they going to get out of this one?
Very, very difficult considering that they've also got a bouncing Betty coming towards them. That thing is going to be hitting hard. VZD eliminated. The duo will go down. Aurora survive, however, and they are fully dressed in red as well. The difficulty for them is Scars. They have a Mastiff on this door, and now they're going to make the push. The Eva 8 is going to hit extremely hard, but no knockers come in as yet in the kill feed, though. FUT, Foot, Kuya has gone down, so we talked about their good position. It's not looking as strong now.
Scars doing so well to hold and not to get carried away with pushing in. Caustic Gas also going down. Gladiators get eliminated in 7th position. Aurora do the majority of the damage as Scars just watch on and continue to hold. But Aurora have found themselves in a position where they don't have to push Scars here at the moment. They can force their hand a little bit.
That massive might be a real big influence towards this end game as well. Get into those 1v1 battles, get into those areas on the map where you can really put that weapon, the care package, to use. For now, Scars looking for a little bit of ammo to work with. You can see the flatline didn't have too much in the heavy ammo department to really cause problems in this end game. Speaking of causing problems, FUT will be finally eliminated as the last player does go down. So from a great position that they did have, unfortunately they weren't able to convert their down as that zone just shifted away from them a little bit more than expected.
Look at the position of Jay Savage here right inside the truck. Scars still having that scuffle at the top at the moment. They're going to be one of the teams that first has to move as this circle closes, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on them as well because they were making a lot of noise. Kill leaders right now. And they have got the high ground. It is going to be the only advantage. Do they try and push one of these teams and slowly work up with a fight? But they've got to go now.
They've got to go now. They try and get some fences down. It's brilliant from Taishin to make sure they cannot be climbed on. The only problem is they're getting shot by so many different teams that finding somewhere to survive is going to be tough. Hyaka goes down. Taishin last alive, and it is Aurora on the low ground who managed to hold firm here. 3 Muppets eliminated alongside Scars. We're down to just 3.
One of the downsides of being a boisterous team who's getting so many kills in the kill feed is that there is a lot of eyes on you. People know you're getting the damage and where you're getting the damage from. But Aurora did so well to escape that situation. They were being held by Scars, but they found a little bit of an alleyway they could work with. They go down low, and now with 3 teams remaining, Aurora looking to try and take advantage of a Wraith portal here.
Oh, they do. They pour in. This is interesting. There's a caustic, though, and it's going to be Forge. You have the barrels down, and it caused a few problems. Excuse me. As we see now, Bitfix Gaming thinking, is there going to be any damage done? Have they got the opportunity maybe to move in and be that third party? They've also got the ramparts, so they've got some shields to work with. Creeping is hitting hard with that 301. This is a standoff of all standoffs. They're trying to create some false cover themselves by just using those rampart walls, and by doing so, they take down Forge, and they win the game.
And 2 of our off-meta teams going for a slightly different composition of 2 who are in that final circle, and a Rampart gets the victory. Just that extra bit of protection and also timing it perfectly in that final circle. Aurora tried to make the play. They Wraith portaled in. They tried to make a difference. And unfortunately, Fallout, it was not enough to get them the W.
That's right, but instead it was Rampart on top. Apologies, had to fight with the mute button there. Wow, a Rampart meta. Little Max from Egypt, by the way, representing the Middle East and representing well. Bitfix, the 2 Norwegians, performing in game number 5. A must-win game for them in the grand scheme of things. We will bid farewell to Onset, giving a little break, a well-deserved break, as Gaskin and I will break down all the action from game number 5. Gaskin, your thoughts on the Rampart pick and Bitfix's performance?
I mean, I'm all for off-meta picks, right? I'm all for picking different legends that can try and help you in certain scenarios, and usually it is specific scenarios. I guess that was one of them in that final circle, where you can get into that area, you can use those extra walls just to give you a little bit of protection. Then everyone's gonna be saying, oh, what a perfect pick. It's when it goes wrong. It's when these off-meta picks, they go a little bit wrong and you die in the early game and people are like, Rampart, whatever. But it's worked out on this occasion, and if they can carry on getting into these final circles and using her to her best advantage, then I'm all for it.
And honestly, it was not the Sheila, but instead the shields that Rampart placed late game that really made the difference. Their ability to push, make some makeshift cover, kind of replacing the role that Gibraltar played in previous metas where you'll have artificial cover from Gibby. Well, you get artificial cover from Rampart and they're able to heal back up and absolutely beam the team that was just above them. I believe it was Forge on the trailer. Let's take a look at the highlights though from the entirety of the game, because we did see a couple other teams. VZD known to play Rampart, but no G Dolphin unfortunately playing as a team of 2, so no Rampart for them. Let me take a look at High Peak here with a couple early kills.
Yeah, it was a difficult circle for a lot of these teams to navigate because it kept pulling left, right, and everywhere, it would seem. Like, a lot of teams started banking on certain areas and then it would pull away from them. Then when people realized it was going to be Lava Siphon, they went to maybe the west side of Lava Siphon and then suddenly it pulls east. And there was such little kind of room to play with in that final circle that so many teams, they really struggled to actually get into a position or a spot they could confidently hold, and that's why we started to see so many teams fall like flies as we got to the later stages. There was a caustic there to disrupt things for some teams. There was a lot of gas that was floating around left, right, and center as well. But ultimately, it was just about holding the low ground for some of these teams. Not only the winning team of BFix, but also we saw Aurora get out of this situation where Scars seemed to have everything on them, but Aurora still escaped.
Yeah, and Scars, you thought maybe they could make it to top 3. They showed some life, a much-needed game for them, but only falling in 5th place, opening the door for BitFix Gaming all the way in 19th place to put up some big numbers as well here, Gaskin. Good finish for them. They take out Forge. They use that cover to their advantage, and they come out on top. And as a result, well, a 5-kill first-place game, a decent 17 points. That's not going to do a whole lot for them in the overall standings, but will certainly help. But Aurora with 17 kills, the aggressive team composition of Ranches, Cleve, and Molly1 continues to impress.
And you can see that's the way they wanted to play the game right at the end when they portaled on in to try and take down Forge. They had no thought process about, all right, we're going to try and hold a position and see if we can win just off placements. They already knew they'd been frying, and they wanted to continue to fry as they went on. Unfortunately, we did not see the 4 games in a row from Ascend. They dropped in 13th position, but they will still very much be at the top of our leaderboards here.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the overall standings as a result. We mentioned how much did it do for BitFix? Did it break them in the top 10? No. BitFix still in 14th. Despite a win in game number 5, you need to not only win when you're that far behind, you got to put up some kills as well. So I'm interested to see how BitFix changes their playstyle going into game number 6, where they need a few more points or just take another consistent top 3 finish. We'll put them in the top 10, but they want to finish top 5. Game Word in 5th, Foot Esports in 4th, Pioneers 3rd, Aurora 2nd, yet Ascend still well on top of the overall leaderboards and standings here, Gaskin.
And they are, you know, just far enough ahead that it's like, pretty sure they're going to win this week. Pretty sure they're going to finish in first. But there's still that slight chance with how Aurora just played, right? If Ascend drop early again and Aurora have another pop-off game, there's still that eeny-weeny chance. And that's what I think is a little bit scary for here for Ascend. And they won't necessarily have the freedom they may have thought they might in game number 6 here.
And that's a good point. Now, obviously, I don't think any of the fans disagree because we all love how entertaining and exciting the match point format is. But by the way, friends, in case you didn't know, this is why match point format exists, to avoid these scenarios where after 3 or 4 games, you already know who's going to win the match and to win the tournament. Ascend is so far ahead of everybody else. Going into game 6, it's fairly anticlimactic. It's so hype having the match point format only in our high stakes moments. And, you know, of course, this time around, Ascend, no match point format, certainly has this one close to in the bag, unless they drop a complete goose egg and someone goes crazy with a 12 to 15 kill game, which could be possible. We'll see what will happen here in game number 6. But for the most part, it seems like a race for second place here, guys.
It was interesting, though, that the first most difficult test for Ascend, right, where the circle pulled the furthest away it has done so far today, they fall so short. And I do think that is a little bit of a coincidence. They were quite unfortunate with the 2 teams closing on them. I think they got kind of sandwiched by 2 squads at the same time. They did their best. They got back up to a full 3, but unfortunately there was too many eyes. But it does show that you really need to make the most out of the games which do favor you ever so slightly. And that's exactly what Ascend did, right? A circle that was quite close to their landing spot. They made sure they win it. The other 2 games where they didn't have to move that far, but they were winning their engagement so that they could get to the priority positions. It's hats off to them with how they played in those initial 4 games. Yes, okay, you can have one bad one, but it looks like it might not matter.
That's a good point. You know, obviously, it seems like the obvious thing is if a team drops near where the circle's pulling, they have an advantage. But statistically speaking, from ALGS champs, I believe the analysis was done. If anyone did it, it was you, Gaskin. But I think it was 50-50. Teams that won games from dropping inside or close to ring or outside of ring. So it just goes to show whether you play edge or you're playing from outside of ring or you land inside the ring, it really doesn't not necessarily make the difference in terms of overall advantage. It comes down to who can outperform in those late game moments and find God's spot. Valkyrie certainly helps with that. But let's welcome Onset back to the discussion here as we get ready for our last and final game of EMEA. Onset, your thoughts on that exact discussion? Whether you like to play edge and outside of the circle or inside of the circle.
I think there's been a certain shift for sure. This season we're seeing in Pro League where we are seeing composition certainly influence things. We're seeing more defensive legends come back in, the prevalence of Watson coming back in alongside Newcastle. We are seeing the pattern start to emerge, like we mentioned, right, of zone being a really big influence on who is going to be at the top of those leaderboards. And I think that last game that, like Dan was saying, really showed that Ascend, who have had really good access to zones where they've had the success, the one zone that they don't have a great amount of access to in comparison, they struggle with. And I think that's just down to fighting into those zones now when you have Watson fences, where you have Watson gens, grenades don't become as effective, bombardments don't become as effective. All these things start to add up. And I think it's just a symptom of the legend picks and the compositions that we're seeing.
Yeah, I got to completely agree. And obviously, yeah, some defensive legends, but really it's the healthiest the meta of Apex Legends has ever been in terms of character diversity. We are in the double digits, well into the double digits of legends played today, including Caustic, Watson, Newcastle, Wraith has been on display. We've seen Bloodhound. We've seen Crypto. We've seen a variety of legends. Bangalore has been on display. So it's been awesome to see how much diversity that EMEA is bringing to the competitive Apex scene. Let's go ahead and get ready for game number 6, our last and final game, last opportunity for teams to skyrocket the leaderboards and earn the points that they need to get a top 9 spot and a spot at the season or split 1 playoffs. Let's go ahead and kick it over to Gaskin and Onset to call the action for game number 6.
Thank you very much, John. Let's get into this then. Let's close things out for match day number 2 here in the EMEA Pro League, and let's see who is going to be contesting at the top of the leaderboards when it's all said and done. We know, Dan, coming into this game that Ascend have got first place locked down unless something ridiculous happens, which, let's be real, probably isn't going to happen at this point. No one's going to kill absolutely everyone in the lobby. But for the teams who are in the chasing pack, everything is still on the line here. And we know how, with the points, how they work and the separation between 2nd and 10th place, it really can be a big jump up you can make with one good game here to close things out.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of give Ascend first here unless they go out very early. And then there's still a slim chance that Aurora could do some damage. Nightmare Esports go out right to the start of the game. We missed it whilst we were dropping. Fire Beavers will take them out and they will win the engagement over towards Fragment. So that's a great start for Fire Beavers to get some points on board. They're 9th position at the moment and they'll want to climb up into that top 5 for sure.
I think the term is blink and you'll miss it, because that's pretty much what you would have done there. As we join the game and Fire Beavers already put their first 3 KP on the board and assert their dominance over Fragment East here. Now they're going to have to move across towards the west side. Now, this was not as happy for them last time. As we see, they got caught about 3 or 4 different times by 3 or 4 different teams. Somehow managed to get out of it and play the game as a duo, but it didn't end up being a great game for them due to the fact that they had to move in so late. But for Fire Beavers, certainly getting those KP on the board is a much healthier start for them here in our final game.
It's about now just looting up, taking advantage of having the freedom. When you win a drop fight, you are going to have much more freedom to be able to loot and make sure you can get as much kind of armor and ammo to work with. They've also got the beacon scan, where they know they're going to now have to move even further west, which might not be the best of signs for them, but a team that it is a good sign for is Ascend. This is going to be moving towards Ascend territory, and we were saying how, if Ascend don't fall early, then it's likely they're going to be winning the game. So we'll keep an eye on them as the game goes on and whether they're able to kind of get into the top 10 at the very minimum, and they should be winning this entire day. Elsewhere though, Bitfix, who were able to win the previous game with their off-meta choice of Rampart, still aren't even in the top 10 on set, which is kind of crazy. Like, after winning a game, still not been able to break through. They need some more consistency going into match number 6 here.
Yeah, you certainly do indeed. Bitfix Gaming showing that Rampart has a part to play in the ALGS as well, and I'm sure that even though unfortunately G-Dolphin's not with us in this week with the team changes that happened, he's going to be happy to see Rampart certainly performing in that end game and showing exactly what she can do as a legend and a pick with those abilities in the end game. I haven't seen the Sheila on display yet though. Now let me tell you, I felt it a couple of times in ranked recently. I've not enjoyed it, Dan. I've not on the receiving end of it. I've not enjoyed it too much.
I don't think I've ever really enjoyed being on the receiving end of a massive turret. just drilling bullets.
It's true,
like
actually.
it's never been fun.
Yeah,
I don't think at
made
any
a better
point I've
choice
gone,
of words
oh,
for me there.
I'm so glad he's put a turret right in my face. It's just, it's so difficult when a Sheila turret comes out and you get kind of caught blindsided by it, because the amount of damage that thing does is insane. Elsewhere, GG, 13th position at the moment. The real question for me is, are we going to see them hit their stride a little bit in match number 6? Because there's so much potential in this lineup.
Yeah, there's potential, but at the moment, it's looking a little bit like a rocky situation for them. Good damage being done here by Artico, and Leogri trying to finish up on it, but you can already see that they're taking a little bit of damage from both sides. But this Dorito building is a very strong one to hold for where this zone may well be going. You've got that huge mountain behind you, which is going to stop all of those teams. You don't have to worry about that back coming from the southern side of World's Edge, and then you can just focus in front of you with the high ground advantage. You can command so much space here, and for Gaming Gladiators, I think they need to have a strong game here just to kind of prove to themselves, I think, after a very, very poor performance in week 1 and a very, very shaky performance here in week 2, that this is still the lineup that can get the job done.
Yeah, because you look at the names, right? And you look at what Hardeki's done in the past, and actually this entire lineup, what it's done in the past, and how amazing they've been, and some of the performances they've put out throughout the ALGS. They should be a team contesting winning each day, if I'm completely honest. So the fact they haven't been up there has been a surprise. I was expecting maybe a little bit more out of them, and I'm sure they would have been as well. The only way to rectify that is having a pop-off game now, making sure you send yourself as far up that leaderboard as you can. Then going into match week 3, you're going to be feeling maybe a little bit more comfortable about your positioning and about how you've been playing.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of a poke battle going down over at Survey at the moment. No one really being able to win it. However, Phoenix Legacy are going to lose 1. They're also going to lose 2. It's all down to the one-man army IMP. Can you get it done? It's not looking like this is going to be a nice situation for him to find himself in, because he's got 3 different guns trained onto him. Joke, though, taken down pretty weak, but we'll have plenty of time to pop that battery. It's just a case of not if but when, as Phoenix Legacy will be eliminated here at the hands of V2. We're down to 18 squads.
I've been very much impressed with V2's fighting capability throughout this day. A couple of times where they've had their backs against the wall, they've still won engagements. When they've been the aggressors, they've been pushing and taking the right angles, really communicating well between the team with the positions they've been taking as well. It seems like if they can start to get, a few more end circles and start to get their positioning even better when it comes to end game, this V2 side could be a real threat for kind of competing with the very best in the league now here in the ALGS.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've shown in their team fights that they have great coordination. They have great cohesion, and of course they hit the shots when they need to, which is always something that you're looking for in a lineup. That natural chemistry, the bait and the switching, whatever it might be to make the team fighting successful, is certainly on display here. And V2, having won that fight and having got those KP on the board, in absolutely no rush to head towards zone now. Just going to craft some med kits, craft some heals, and make sure that they're healthy to move in nice and late. Speaking of moving in, it will be Scars who take residence at the moment in the center of the map, and they'll pick up a couple of kills alongside it. You can see that Taishin is contributing to those kills as the knock does come in. All this fighting going down in and around Harvester for now, and being bang in the center zone isn't too bad of a place for them to be. However, we do see where that zone is going to be shifting. We are moving north, and that's quite a significant pull.
It could be a similar circle to what we saw in Game 4 as well, like heading over towards Countdown area. It could be prime time for the likes of Ascend, the likes of KCP, but it looks like people are thinking this is going to be more likely landslide, and that's why we're seeing a lot of people in these train carts getting ready. Pioneers are having to kind of run away from a few teams at the moment. They are stuck between a rock and a hard place. So much damage coming from various directions.
Not in a good spot here. Naski and Serdell
It's Ascend.
have lost Strafey, who was, of course, the solo hero a little bit earlier on World's Edge in our game number 4, managing to rat out to a second place finish to get them a huge amount of points in comparison to where they could have been. Like you mentioned, Ascend sneaking around as well, looking to put some damage down. You've got BFG up on that high ground. Not looking to be a big friendly giant, though. Looking to just cause more problems than anyone. But there is the res. So I think that KCP actually managed to just get that beacon, that res beacon hit. The mobile beacon was good enough to get Strafey back into the game. The question is, can he pick up his loot and can they cause problems? As now we're going to see Taskmaster and Fire Beavers doing exactly that. On top of this beacon building, now the other side of the mountainous area, just outside of West Fragment. They lose one, though. Even though the damage was done, his teammates weren't there to capitalize.
So much happening all around the map as well. Joke will get The finish onto Taskmaster. V2 once more showing how good they are in these 3v3 engagements. Firebeavers get eliminated. 17 squads. Strafey's just gone down. KCP really struggling in the areas that they've been finding themselves so far. And V2 now will win this building, this beacon building. And they can just kind of be a little bit patient, but they've noticed another team kind of straggling over towards the zone. And I tell you what, with how V2 have been playing and the confidence I've been seeing, I wouldn't be surprised if they try and get aggressive once more.
I was about to say, they've noticed one team sneaking around. The team now knows that V2 are there as well, because that R301 just tracked and did not miss as the shields got shattered. And V2 now have the opportunity to move up and command this choke, which is such a strong one to hold, especially towards that end game. You see those teams who are going to be rotating out of that tunnel coming in from Skyhook. You've got all of the open land in front of you as well. And Scars also looking to make that move a little bit later towards the zone. They're going to be pretty safe now. They're maybe thinking about making a little bit of progress up towards staging here, and now they're going to be looking to take the fight because they've already got that first knock. They've got the caustic barrels down though in front of them, which is going to cause some problems. Also, Taishin going down. He falls to both players peeking. The ultimate goes in as well, and now all of a sudden Scars looking at a bit of a shambles, and Jerovic is going to go down as well by the looks of things.
Yeah, this is Aurora they're pushing, and we've seen how good Aurora have been, and that caustic on the defensive side is going to help them out so much. And also having the portal to escape was massive, as Aurora will get back up to a full 3. They hold off Scars, and they might get some KP, will get some KP for it. So Aurora, who were in second place coming into this game, are still proving to be an absolute threat in this lobby, as that's going to be so frustrating for Scars.
Yeah, Scars just looking to force the issue a little bit too much there. They did get a little bit of damage, they got it down, but just didn't really work together well enough as a unit to isolate those last two players. Just gave the opportunity for two players to poke at the same time and just absolutely delete Taishin initially. Now we're going to see the second part of this battle going down. It looks like Scars aren't happy with what happened a few minutes ago. And even though it looks like Aurora back to a full 3 and back to full health after these cells and shields batteries will be popped, Scars aren't done with this yet.
I think, unfortunately for Scars, they feel like they have to try and push up on this. Eventually, it looks like they're going to give up. They kept pressing, they kept pushing. Maybe we're hoping that Aurora hadn't got that third player back up, but as soon as they've received that information, they are going to try and go over the top of them. And now suddenly Aurora are behind Scars, and it's whether Scars still try and go back for this one and try and take the fight once more.
And Scars have gone all the way back into Harvester now, so they're deep into zone. They're not going to be worried too much about that fight. They're going to say to Aurora, okay, round 1 goes to you, but maybe towards the end game we can have something to say about it. You can see Aurora also maybe just aware that Scars might be late rotating on them here, and I think they've actually made the decision that they want to try and push this. Maybe they're going to actually change where they want to rotate. They're going to take a fight here towards the Vault Tunnel, which leads onto Landslide. If they can take control of this area, then it would be a very strong position for them to move forward from. There's only one team who's inside of the next circle, though. I will say that. And that, of course, is going to be KCP. The Pioneers, once again, managing to predict where that zone is going to be going and setting themselves slap bang in the center of it. Delwyn Strafey back into the game as well. So, not for the first time. We saw Strafey go down. We saw him re-knocked as well as he got rezzed. But he's been brought back to his feet once more.
And this is the same position we saw the Pioneers try and play in what was a very similar circle in match number 4. However, in that circle, it pulled over towards Countdown. KCP now have predicted it correctly. This is again going back to those priority positions I was talking about. Going for those areas where you think the circle could be pulling, and also giving yourself the best chance if it pulls elsewhere. And now, because of it, Pioneers seem to have one of the best positions in the map. Ascend also have moved over east side as well. Like, they have predicted the circle was going to go this way. Their circle manipulation or whatever, their predictions has been incredible this tournament. So I'm not surprised that they also find themselves in one of the better spots.
3 Muppets versus Aurora. Big damage being done. That entry damage could be massive. You can see Maggie using that Q as well. The drill going to be going in to try and force those players out from cover. Aurora need to force this fight. They know they've only got 28 seconds before that zone closes behind them. And with zone 4, the damage is going to be so detrimental to them having any chance of winning this fight in front of them that they have to go, and they have to go now. They're going to expel so many resources. The Caustic ultimate goes in as well. The Nox gas is going to help out get that first knock. It looks like they have the advantage in this fight.
Our second place team looking to try and get as much damage as possible to try and pick up more KP and maybe do the unthinkable of catching Ascend, but with 17 squads still left and Ascend still being one of them, it becomes less likely the further we get into this game. But Aurora still showing their dominance and still showing why they are a real threat in these lobbies. so impressed. Every single game we've gone through, there's been something a little bit different from them. They've been changing their composition from map to map as well, and it seems like they know exactly how they want to approach both maps.
Well, this is 3 Muppets who were trying to hold down that Vault Tunnel. For now, unfortunately, they're just holding on for dear life. 3 Muppets will be eliminated, and it was all down to that aggressive push coming in from Aurora. The Caustic Nox gas was pretty much the difference maker there. Just being able to toss it into that setup that was in front of them just caused so much damage, caused so much kind of panic for them to try and deal with. They took that ground, they aggressively pushed into it and managed to get that knock and force the team out. Now they will be safe. Totem Esports trying to get themselves into a position to be safe as well. Just kind of in a nice fortified corner here. They've got a lot of cover to play with here, Totem.
My question would be, where do Aurora go from here, by the way? Because not only have they got Totem to their left, they've got SAF in front of them. And it is not going to be an easy rotation whatsoever. But they've done it once and they've done it twice already in this tournament, where they've been able to get into circles that arguably they shouldn't. I'm sure they'll be trying to brute force their way once more with the composition that they have. And if they can get into the final circle with the Caustic on board, then they're going to make it a living hell for everyone else who is in that lobby. So Dell gets yet another kill onto Bambino. That was one of the SAF players that I was talking about that was just north of Aurora. So that could be the chance for them to push.
I love this from KCP as well. If you get the opportunity to pop over to them, it looks like they're just trying to have a look at all of this fighting that's going down to the southern side of where this zone is pulling. They're trying to sniff and see if they can get some KP. Dell is that man to watch. He's kind of on the hunt, seeing if any damage gets done, any fights break out, if there's any downs that they can steal away and really add. And you can see in the kill feed there, he picks up one onto Bambino. So Dell is being a problem for the lobby here. Strafey and Natsuki are holding things down, but for Applied Totem, they're just trying to force their way into zone.
And I think you've got to try and brute force it at this point. You can't really dilly-dally any longer with only 30 seconds left. You have to move soon, and it seems like that call will come very shortly. And they're going to be trying to worm their way through, but there's so many teams in areas now where they have vantage points. Like BFG, for example, they can look down from above and they can be a real nuisance. Look where that circle is going to be going. KCP in one of the best positions right now. GG still alive. Hardeki is going to be in that final circle. And I seem to remember a very famous circle quite similar to this, where Hardeki was able to win a 1 versus X in what was one of the most crazy finishes I've seen to any sort of game.
Well, it looks like GG have got multiple players alive as well to help Hardeki on his way to maybe salvaging some sort of performance as far as points is concerned for GG in our second match day of the EMEA Pro League. For now, though, for esports, in a very similar position to what we saw them in last time we saw the zone, somewhat similar to what we find it at now. The only problem for them is they've got all these teams who are going to leave Countdown, and they're going to have to deal with them as they try and move forward themselves. Looks like the time to move is now. The pingers come in, SAF are out, Forge are out as well. And now we're down to just 12 squads, and Foot have seen the opportunity now to move in. They believe that their back is clear, and they will be correct in thinking that they have the whole lobby in front of them, and Taylor is going to shred. GG are eliminated.
Bitfix also going out. Aurora still alive. Ascend now, though, have jumped on top of them, so Aurora have lost 2, and Aurora go down. Remember, they were in second place. Ascend will almost solidify their first place with that victory in a team fight there, but Foot Esports from the distance, doing so much damage, being a right nuisance to the teams, trying to desperately stay alive as Ember lose 2.
Well, let's jump into the listening now with Foot Esports because they are decimating the lobby in front of them.
Got this! Clear it!
What's Dildo? Careful, Dildo!
Yeah! Just play this rock!
He's working here! Book zone!
I'm popping accelerants!
We need to shock! Heal up!
I need to go! Shoot that! Can't with that. I'm dead, fuck!
Shield me, Dildo! Shield Dildo!
Ah, nice try. I guess we shouldn't have chased the rat.
Not the win they maybe were looking for in that situation. Foot Esports points on the board, but the placement lot there alongside it.
We also saw Pioneers go down and all that scuffle elsewhere, so despite the priority position they had found, I think unfortunately because their armors weren't necessarily great, their loot wasn't that great, they couldn't do enough to stay alive, as we have 4 squads now remaining. Turkish Stars, one of them, still trying to fight for their chance to be in the top 5, but we have to note, Ascend still alive, still in one of the better positions. You've also got Forge, you've also got Totem, who are doing some real damage at the moment in this lobby.
Totem trying to hold out Ascend at the moment. Ascend now make their push. Big damage coming in. There's an armor swap there for Sharp as well. So even though Ascend have made the push and done the damage, they're not aware that there's armor swaps, and it's going to be Totem who look like they're coming out on top. Sharp will survive, so will Jazaz, but Jazaz now is last alive. Will have to do something magical. He can't get it done, and Reply Totem will fall as V2, your team, who you were backing after their early fight performance here, Dan, are moving in to try and win this game.
They were down in 10th at the start of this game, and now they're up into the top 5 with the kills that they've got. They are absolutely shredding right now, and surely it's just a matter of moments to try and finish off this game. 1-11. Lazidian's going to be doing what he can, and it's going to be a push that just works out perfectly.
Oh, he's going to move in as well. Yeah, have to expect him to get the final kill. This man is decimating the lobby. He picks up the final shots. Actually, his teammate does, but it's V2 overall who managed to win our final game of the day. And I tell you what, that end game, there was so many kills in front of them, and not only did they win the game down, they took advantage of the kills too.
Oh, I wanted to see what they did in an end game, right? I've seen the amazing 3v3 engagements. They've happened in the kind of early to mid game, but what happens when they're put in those threatening scenarios right at the end? Well, they pull it out of the bag, and if that's what V2 looks like, think about what V3 might look like as this team develops.
I'm so ashamed to call you a friend and a co-host, Gaskin. The worst dad joke I've heard all day long. Now I'm just kidding. I love that. V2 looking great. That was impressive, Mark.
I'm setting myself up now. Now that I know the dad jokes are on the table, I'm ready for North America.
Gosh.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Please, someone help me get through this day. I have to do a whole other broadcast with these two. Dad jokes will be flying. But jokes aside, we got to give some credit to V2, not V3, for a great performance here in game number 6. They needed that 15th place, and it was really interesting. The majority of those teams, Turkish Stars, V2, left in that lobby were teams that were on the second page of that leaderboard. So the teams that really needed to perform if they wanted to stay relevant and get themselves some points on this day 1 Pro League onset.
Yeah, they had to. And I think that was the interesting thing, right? Ascend kind of took a lot of points away from the lobby in those first 5 games, which made the rest of the leaderboard so exciting for everyone else because they just had it in their head. They're like, okay, it's so tight between second place, even down to like 15th, that everything could have changed. And V2, that kind of performance is what you dream of in that scenario, right? Going through a lobby, winning team fights, putting KP down, and then getting a win at the end of it. You know you're going to be jumping up 5, 10 places, whatever it might be, if you can do that. So for V2, it's a perfect end to the day for them. They're going to be, chomping at the bit to get back into the lobby for match day number 3.
Yeah, that's right. Bitfix Gaming had themselves some high ground in Landslide. You thought maybe they had a chance to go back-to-back and put together 2 impressive performances. Damn, what went wrong for them? And talk to me about some of the other teams outside of V2 who performed here in late game.
I think sometimes when you try and take those high ground positions in Landslide, you are just such a focus point from everyone else. You're also in one of those kind of priority positions, so all the Valkyries are going to be dropping on you as well, and you just become a little bit too much of a center point. It's so difficult to try and play around that. When the circle did start to develop in those final stages, so many teams moved from the position they'd initially been holding because all of the teams that were outside of the circle all emerged at the same time. You couldn't safely hold one area, so you kind of had to fight your way out. You had to just take fights where you could and then take the positioning off that other team. And the team that was doing it best was V2 because they had been fighting so well throughout this tournament. They just would kind of win fight, get into fight, win fight, get into fight, and they just kind of moved. It was like a chess game from them.
Rinse and repeat, and they had the gun skill to follow. Let's take a look at the highlights and see how it went so well for them here in game number 6. Onset, walk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few fights that broke out early. This was the first one, just the contest that went down, interestingly, over at Fragment East. But it was Gaming Gladiators who were actually in a pretty good spot for the majority of this game, but weren't able to capitalize towards the end, which was a kind of a highlight in a more of a concerning way for me, I would say, because we expect so much from that lineup, and when you see them get into good spots, you usually expect them to convert. But this was the fight that I think was really important for V2. Not the first one, but this one here, where they managed to take down one of the strongest fighting teams that we have in the EMEA region, of course, which is Fire Beavers. You win that kind of fight against those kind of players, it just means that next time someone fights you, you know you're just going to win that fight. It's a confidence thing, and every single time that we saw them, it was a fight that you would just never felt they were going to lose at any point. They had opening damage, they had initial damage, and they were able to capitalize on everything that they did. So I was really impressed with them. From that fight onwards, it just seemed like it was their game to lose.
Gaskin?
And I will say that, circles like that, it is usually the teams who fight better and are more happy to take risks that often find the success as well, because there's not as much room to play with. There's not as much room to kind of set up with the defensive legends in circles like this. So those who are taking the risks, that are pushing the fights, that are getting the shield swaps, are often those who will find success in the end. And I think that's what kind of screams to me about V2 and how they've been playing and the success they've had. They got a little bit shaky in this final fight, but I think the adrenaline was pumping through them at that point. They knew they'd won the game, and off the back of a mammoth set of kills as well, drops 26 points for V2.
That is huge, and Ascend does certainly more than enough to keep on that first place finish, but Reply Totem right behind with 9 kills. Big game from them, 16. They will be in contention for a top 7 finish, but V2 dominates. The Turkish Stars make it to late game, get themselves some placement points, but not a whole lot in the kills category. Ascend with 8, though, certainly one of the highlights here. Any other highlights you got on set?
I think for esports end game as well, I think they played it really well. They just got a little bit unfortunate maybe with that final decision that they made to return to that spot. I think if they would have maybe tried to move up a little bit into the center, having just wiped all the teams to their left, they might have had a little bit more of a success as far as placement was concerned, but their prioritization of kills up until that point was certainly a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, team you see on the second page here, a team that started strong and showed some hope in Diamond Gladiators. We had them circled, highlighted, bolded. We really looked for them to have a big showing in day number 2, but unfortunately, not the best showing overall. Let's take a look at the series results and see who fit into that top 10, and we'll take home the majority of the points for today's Pro League. Ascend by a mile, almost doubling the points of second place Aurora. Congratulations to the Portuguese boys. Again, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Vamos Portugal, a massive showing from Caixeira, the IGL, the heart of Portugal, post-kill, and of course, the Polish sensation in Lufka. Aurora in second with some very diverse team compositions. I'm excited to talk about that and more as we take a look at our Monster MVP and discuss who performed today. To me, obviously, a fun one to talk through with Monster MVP here, gentlemen, and I want to get your thoughts off the rip. Gaskin, starting with you, who do you have your eyes on as the MVP for the day?
I mean, you were talking about him already, Lufka, and the way that he played today and the way that the entire team played today. It all kind of stems from how individuals will perform and whether teams can kind of bounce around them. And as a Valkyrie, it's going to be very important that you are kind of making those calls, that you are getting into those positions and also prepared to get the hell out of there when needed to. It was the amount of damage we were seeing from Lufka and the amount of kind of positions he was putting himself in that he could actually shred with any gun that was in his hands. It didn't seem to matter what happened and where he was. He was always being the guy to watch. And I think that the rest of the Ascend team, you know, any of these players can pop off at their right time, but for me, he was the highlight out of these 3.
Mark, your thoughts on Lufka's performance today?
I think he was outstanding. When you're looking for a player to come and join a squad and, you know, add something else, you need consistency. And every single time that we saw him in those short-range fights, those close-range gunfights, he was doing what you want a player like that to do, right? Which is hit the shots and do huge amounts of damage. But one thing that also impressed me about him was his ability to not get over greedy for KP, not get into, you know, that kind of flow state where you're hitting all your shots, right? And you're like, oh, I can take on anyone. I'm going to overextend here, maybe swing out a little bit and see if I can pick up a couple of extra KP. I think his discipline alongside, you know, his general gameplay was really impressive for me. And I think he's just added so much to this lineup that now they look like a genuine contender.
Yeah, and I got to agree with you. Lufka performing so incredibly well. We were highlighting him and talking about him all day long, but I got to bring up someone else in contention here. It's Maliwan. Formerly of the Magicians, Maliwan of Team Aurora showed up playing as Seer on Storm Point, switched over to Caustic, but this is the moment for me. His ability to stay alive right here, get themselves a much needed additional 2 or 3 placement points, and on top of that, pick up some kills along the way. This guy was absolutely frying. Switched over to Caustic on World's Edge, the only player as Caustic, I believe, in the lobby. So again, Maliwan in particular, I think played really well on Aurora. All 3 of them played great, but to me, Aurora all up. I mean, their ability to push the meta continually, they're the only ones that ran that Mad Maggie and Bangalore team composition at ALGS Champs. You saw him bust out Maggie again on World's Edge here. I think Maliwan played great. Dan, do you agree?
Yeah, I think what I would really highlight was the way that they avoided the fight with Scars when they were kind of trapped in the building, and I think he was the one who led the charge around and found the angle to get underneath them. And sometimes it is a little risk taker that you need on your squad. Sometimes it's a player who can just look outside of the box a little bit, and I think that's what we saw from Maliwan. And exactly what is about this team outside of the box, right? A different meta, a different composition for both maps as well. They were so impressive today, and even though they had a disappointing end in match number 6, it didn't matter too much. They were still able to finish second, and I think they're going to be a team to watch as we move forward.
Alrighty, well, I completely agree with y'all. This was your Monster MVP. So many players performed. Obviously, a lot of team hype. Aurora in their debut in the ALGS Pro League. Well, welcome back to the former Team Empire squad that took the Split 2 Sweden playoffs by storm with a flashy performance. They quickly became a fan favorite based on their gameplay. So aggressive, so in your face. Safe to say they're back, and safe to say they're still on top. Aurora featuring Wraith for the first time and only time probably today. We saw some Bangalore. We, of course, saw some Seer in addition to Caustic and Mad Maggie on this team. You love the diversity in team compositions. As we get ready to queue up our interview for the day, though, as we got to break down the action and hear directly the thoughts from the players themselves, it's going to be none other than the GOAT of Portugal, the king, the heart, one of my favorite people in the Apex community, Kashera. How you doing, my friend? Kashera, you can hear us okay, mate? Stone Cold, Steve Austin. This guy is a stone cold killer. Onset guest.
It just picked up about 1,000 points in the LGS. It takes a little bit of time for you to get out of that state. Like, I know how.
That's right.
I can imagine how it feels. It's. I understand. I know how it is.
The state of just trance. He's just focused. He's locked in. We can't hear, having some audio issues with Kashera here. We can't hear him on our end, so apologies, y'all. For some of the technical difficulties, we'll try and get that resolved here so we can hear from Kashera himself here in just a moment. But before we jump into that, I mean, talk to me, Onset, about Kashera as an IGL, Kashera as a leader, and ultimately Kashera as a player in Apex.
Yeah, one thing that always jumps out to me about Kashera is especially when we had the opportunity to watch, Ascend do what they do on LAN, it's passion, right? It's genuine passion that comes in from him when he's making those play calls, and he expects his play calls to be respected as well because he believes in himself, he believes in the calls that he's making, which usually means that someone believes they've done the hard work required in order for those to be calls that should be followed. So I think one thing you can always look for in a player like Kashera is when you are a leader, it's always the most pressurized position on an Apex team to put yourself in, because you are not only the one who's going to get the plaudits when you have the success, but also when you make a decision that doesn't go well, all eyes look at you first, right? It's very rare that you'll see, oh, you didn't hit your shots in that team fight. It's more, we shouldn't have done that. It's that kind of thing. So I think for Kashera, being an IGL on that team and now having someone alongside him who is obviously following his calls, who is also, doing the damage that is required, it seems like everything is coming together for this Ascend squad, and it's looking, like I say, extremely rosy.
Yeah, I gotta agree. Well, guess what? Turns out we have some of the audio issues sorted. We should have Kashera live for an interview now on stream and on display. Kashera, can you hear us okay now? A little camera switch. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, I can listen. I don't know.
No audio on my end for Kashera.
I can't hear you, Kashera. I'm sorry,
you're
man.
with me.
I mean,
hey, third time will be the charm.
Kashera, if you can hear us, you look great. You played great. And overall, just an amazing and impressive day. And if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. That's all we need. Yeah, we knew it was a good day.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Third time perhaps will be the charm. Kashera, we'll try and get this sorted if we can see if we can get some audio from you so we can hear you live on stream. But again, big congratulations on a great performance from Kashera. We will let y'all know if third time will be the charm, or if we'll move on from the interview here in a moment. But apologies for some of the technical difficulties there, y'all, as we were not able to hear the audio of Kashera there. But Dan, Ascend making a statement today. Talking about some of your kind of key takeaways here, though, from the EMEA broadcast. Ascend certainly has to be one of them, but what else you got?
I've lost you as well, Dan, on my microphone. My headphones.
Kind of teams that are close to where the circle ends and their POI drops have been finding more success, but we have noticed a little bit more this week. Some teams having to traverse a little bit further, still finding success. And I think those are going to be the teams, as we get to the end of the season, who are going to be the teams that are probably featuring in the championships.
Agreed. Yeah, it's an interesting take, an interesting way of meta currently in terms of teams that drop close to zone versus teams that drop and play edge. Either way, what I love about the current meta is there's diversity. You have both play styles that work. You have a hybrid of both play styles that work, and it's been a good day to display that. And here's one big takeaway for me is Kansas City Pioneers, not necessarily the top dog in EU like we thought. Showed a little bit of weakness today. Still a great performance from them overall. The rat from Max Strafey kept them really relevant in the overall standings and picked them up crucial second place 9-point overall placement points. But Onset, as I ask you the same question, your final thoughts on the day, key takeaways of the day before we wrap up the show.
I feel like V2 are going to be a team to watch as we go week after week. I think they're going to get stronger and stronger. And I think that last game performance shows what kind of team they can be as well. A very aggressive team who are going to take fights on edge. And not going to let you feel comfortable. If they get initial damage, they're not afraid to move up on that damage and try and take you out. So I think V2, even though we're giving all the plaudits to the teams who are at the top of the leaderboards completely rightly, I think V2 is certainly going to be one to watch when we get to the end of those weeks of action here in Pro League that are certainly going to be up there.
Well said. Gaskin, any final words on your end?
Yeah, I think I agree, because when we saw in that final circle for Foot, for example, when they pushed back to their original position, that's when they struggled, where in those circles you kind of need to keep going. You need to take momentum with you, and that's what V2 were doing well, is they would finish a fight and then they would re-engage to the next fight as soon as they heard. They wouldn't take too long to reset, whereas teams that were maybe taking a little bit of extra time to kind of think about things were really punished in those circles. And you need to have consistency across a different variety of way of playing in Apex Legends. You can't just be kind of set in stone in your methods, and that's why I think V2 are going to be successful, is because they seem to have a variety of different ways to approach things.
I love that breakdown. That's why I love the two of you as casters. I'll say goodbye to the both of y'all for now. We'll see you again in North America. Thank you so much for killing it, as always, as we get ready to close out the show and head towards the North American broadcast. It's going to be the debut of FaZe Clan for their first time in the ALGS Snipe Down. Slurpee G playing alongside Albrelelli will have a chance to show us what they got after a really, really solid scrim performance yesterday. Can they bang with the best of them? Because we got Optic, we got NRG, we have quite a few heavy hitter squads and rosters in this upcoming North American lobby. But before we get ready for that, we'll say goodbye to all of our EMEA viewers and fans, and of course all of our players. What an EMEA day it was. Congratulations again to Ascend for ending on top and dominating today, showcasing their ability to be one of the best teams in Apex Legends. They performed incredibly well alongside the young controller sensation from Poland in Lufka. Congrats to Ascend, Aurora, and the rest of them. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you in just a few hours for the North American broadcast, which will be live just after this short break. See you later.